Southwest Florida, a good chance that there will be water on the roadways. And if you are driving and you encounter some of that water, you definitely want to turn around, don't drown. That is the saying.
One interesting thing coming in, reading the discussion here from the National Weather Service, the recent observations from that Air Force Reserve unit indicate that those winds are now near 60 knots, or roughly equivalents to 70 miles per hour. It is important to note that the aircraft has not yet had a chance to sample the northeastern quadrant or that storm, so there is a possibility that higher winds already exist and that Elsa could possibly already be a Category 1 hurricane. The environment is not quite conducive for significant strengthening before landfall, and only a slight increase there in intensity would result in Elsa becoming a hurricane as early as this evening or by Wednesday morning when it comes ashore somewhere there around Tampa Bay or the Big Bend. Shari.
Hey guys, so I just wanted to make sure that we pass along a few updates to Southwest Florida. If you're just joining us, we are continuing to track Tropical Storm Elsa. We know that the National Hurricane Center says that Tropical Storm Elsa is forecast to become a Category 1 hurricane off of Lee and Charlotte County coastlines, as you guys have been mentioning. There are a few other updates that I want to make sure that we get on air right now. We are expecting to hear from the Lee County Emergency Management Team. They are expected to hold a press conference in just under an hour at 3 p.m. We are going to carry that live here on Fox 4 for you, and we will bring any updates to you both on air and online as well. We want to remind you guys, you were talking about this tornado watch as well. So tornado watch till 11 this evening, and we're also keeping an eye on flood watch as well if you missed these updates coming in from meteorologist Eric Stone and Trent Eric. Also want to let you know that Lee County government offices and facilities are closing now, actually starting at 2 p.m. So if you had any plans to head to any of those offices, they are closed right now. In addition, the Lee County Department of Health, so COVID testing, COVID vaccinations, or any other medical services through the county are not available at this time. And that does include locations in Lehigh Acres, North Fort Myers, and Fort Myers as well. And the county is also reminding people to just stay off of bridges when winds reach 40 miles per hour. Now, if you're seeing areas of localized flooding in your area, the Lee County asks that you contact the Department of Transportation there, especially if you're seeing anything that could prevent drainage in your area. They ask that you contact the Department of Transportation to minimize localized flooding in your area. Also want to let you know that we are live on Facebook right now. So I see some people saying they did spot a funnel cloud in their area. I'm keeping track of your comments here as well. And if you have any questions as to how the storm could impact you, we want you to know that you can drop them here on social media as well, and we were going to get those answered. In addition, we want to see what you're seeing. So if you have taken any pictures, any video in your area, we're asking that you send that in to us at news@fox4now.com, or you can drop it in the comments as well. We're working to show Southwest Florida exactly the impact of Tropical Storm Elsa during this time. Guys, I want to send it back to you right now in the Weather Center to give us an update on what you're seeing in regards to Tropical Storm Elsa.
Well, I do want to point out that there is a flood warning if you want to pull up Weather One real quick. Flood warning is in effect for coastal Collier County west of I-75. It looks like on the county line of Lee and Collier, all the way southward to Marco Island. I mentioned Marco Island already picking up 3.5 inches of rain in a short period of time, and Naples right now picking up close to 2 inches of rain. So flooding in low-lying areas, plus another couple of inches in store as Elsa keeps on moving north. Therefore, the National Weather Service has issued flood warnings for parts of coastal Collier County, including North Naples, and Marco Island.
Eric, I'm still going over here the latest advisory. Let's go back over and kind of set the stage if folks are just joining us here at 2:12. The National Hurricane Center at 1:45 issued a special statement. The Hurricane Hunter aircraft has been flying in and around this system. They found winds that support 70 miles per hour. It's important to note they are still sampling the northeastern quadrant of the storm. They could find higher winds. Elsa might already be a hurricane as the movement has slowed down just a touch. It is moving north at 9. And that movement north is critical because there is no longer a northwesterly component moving it away from the coastline. So this is going to continue to drag all the heavy moisture around town, and it has been hammering parts of the Florida Keys and also right here in South Florida. If we could take that live shot there from mile marker 0, the southernmost point in the U.S., they have been getting hammered in the Florida Keys throughout the morning. We have had live shots there along the 24 North Hotel, on the northern side of the island, and it was coming down. Eric, on that satellite there, you kind of see that flare up in the last few hours, showing that Elsa is trying to intensify here.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, not trying to, but Elsa actually has intensified. We're looking at a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm right now, in fact, and it is expected to become a Category 1 hurricane as early as this afternoon, offshore of the Lee County coast and Charlotte County as well. So again, the impacts could be very similar to what we saw for Tropical Storm Ada, although it does look like Elsa may be a little bit closer to the coast. Even though the wind field may not be as wide as it was with Ada, we could still and probably will see tropical storm force sustained winds in the Lee and Charlotte County coast, definitely gusting well over that 39 mile per hour west of I-75.
This advisory continues to trickle into our weather computers, but you can see the latest forecast track has a center 95 miles northwest of Key West, and it continues to move north. The latest forecast track has a minimal, weak Category 1, I shouldn't say minimal, I should say weak Category 1 hurricane, winds of 75 miles per hour sitting off our coastline this afternoon and this evening. The pressure down to 1,000 millibars. Eric pointed this out earlier that we're finally seeing the pressure fall. The lower the pressure, the stronger the storm. It has been up around 106, 108 miles per hour here throughout the day, and you can see the radar looping around, giving you a location there of roughly about 75 to 85 miles of that center of circulation from the Marco Island, Cape Romano area, and also out towards Sanibel, where we have crews set here this afternoon to continue to watch for the possibility of storm surge and some flooding. We're going to pop up the hurricane graph. It looks like they're still in the process of updating the hurricane watches and warnings. A hurricane warning will be going up here for parts of the West Coast, according to what they were saying just earlier today. And a matter of fact, it looks like from the Steinhatchee River, from Egmont Key to the Steinhatchee River, is where that hurricane warning is going to be in place. A tropical storm warning for Southwest Florida continues. Eric has shown you the flood warnings there along the coast as several inches of rainfall continues to fall in, and we're continuing to monitor the gate to gate. If we could go back over here towards Weather 2 for a minute, let Eric work his magic there with the watches and warnings. It is this system that's moving north now, less than 10 miles per hour. We talked over the late last week and over the weekend. This storm was moving 3 times that speed at about 28, 29 miles per hour. So it slowed down significantly. This happens, and what has taken place here, the ridge is broken down, and there's a little trough sitting in the northern parts of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's lifting that storm north. Usually when storms start to make this turn, they slow down, and usually they get hit by another front or another steering current, and it picks up some speed, which was what will happen here in the forecast track over the next couple of days. Matter of fact, let's show the updated track for the southeast. Once the storm makes landfall early tomorrow morning north of us in Tampa, still a tropical storm over Jacksonville, parts of Savannah, Brunswick, before regaining tropical storm status there south of the Delmarva Peninsula, and by the start of the weekend here, becoming a remnant low over the Canadian Maritime.
And we've got a report from Key West. Reporter Kevin Osbeck has got a little bit more on Elsa in Key West.
Tropical Storm Elsa did not make landfall in the Keys, but she sure did soak Key West.
This is by far our worst weather this summer.
For hours, the city saw consistent rain. At times, there were pockets of heavy downpours.
Wet and windy, very, very wet and windy. Wasn't expecting this.
On Duval Street and elsewhere in the city, there were pockets of flooding. Wind gusts were clocked at around 45 miles an hour, and those winds made for choppy water.
As Elsa skirted along to the west of Key West, she really did roughen up the surf. We saw waves 2 to 3 feet tall.
Describe the surf.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's pretty wild out there.
But in typical Key West fashion, even during the severe weather, shops were open, people went out for a walk. In a city where there are more tourists than locals, the tropical weather became the tourist attraction.
We've had a blast driving around, seeing all the waves.
Now here in the Keys, the hope is the worst of the weather is over.
It seems like the sky's getting a little bit lighter than it was earlier.
Well, we are continuing to track Tropical Storm Elsa back here in Southwest Florida. We have crews all over our area bringing you the latest. Right now, I want to toss it to investigative reporter Rob Manch. He actually is at Fort Myers Beach right now. He's been tracking conditions there all day. Rob, what are you seeing? I see you with your rain jacket. I see that rain coming down. What are you seeing out there in Fort Myers Beach?
Yeah, well, Shari, this is a sight you don't normally see here on Fort Myers Beach. All of the stores completely closed because of this storm. They all prepared because we didn't know how strong Elsa was going to hit Fort Myers Beach. Right now, the winds are pretty light. It is, like you said, consistently raining here, and the winds, the waves rather, have kicked up quite a bit. But I want to take you over here. The road conditions right now are a little slick. I want to show you what the main drag here in Fort Myers Beach looks like. The rain is causing some puddles to form on the roadways, and so that does make driving conditions a little slick. People are taking it slow as far as we've seen, and not as many people out and about, of course, as over the holiday weekend. So we're continuing to monitor the conditions out here on Fort Myers Beach and how it's affecting the businesses here, and we'll continue to bring that to you throughout the day. But for now, live in Fort Myers Beach, Rob Manch, Fox 4.
Rob, thank you so much for that live report. And again, we have crews all throughout Southwest Florida bringing you the latest on the impact of Tropical Storm Elsa. Just want to remind you, in Bonita Springs, the fire department, Station 4 to be exact, says it is out of sandbags at this time. I know a lot of you are trying to think, how can I protect my property, make sure things are safe? So if you're looking for sandbags, you can you might want to try a different fire department, just because Station 4 right now is out of sandbags. We also want to let you know that Fox 4 is monitoring the storm, keeping you updated and informed. So if you do not have the Fox 4 app on your phone currently, you want to go ahead and download that right now to get the latest on Tropical Storm Elsa, which we are tracking. And we know, based on what meteorologist Eric Stone and meteorologist Trent Eric have been telling us, that we could possibly be talking about a Category 1 hurricane here. Now, that is not official. We want to make sure that we're clear that this is still a tropical storm at this time, but it's something we're keeping a close eye on. We actually cut into our broadcast programming because our team was tracking a tornado warning on the line of Lee and Hendry County. That warning has expired, but we still continue to function under a tornado watch until 11 p.m. So we are working to keep you updated at this time. At this time as well, we are anticipating a press conference from Lee County Emergency Management. That is scheduled for 3 p.m., so just under an hour from here. We're waiting to hear what Lee County Emergency Management has to say and gives us any updates as to what to expect. A reminder, the Lee County Department of Health is closed at this time. They closed just about 20 minutes ago, and in addition, government offices have closed as well. So those are new updates into our newsroom that we want to make sure that you are staying on top of and informed of as well. And also, if you're seeing any pictures, any rainfall, any flooding in your area, we want to know about it. We want to let Southwest Florida know about it. So you can email us at news@fox4now.com, or you can drop in any comments on Facebook as well. We are live on Facebook right now. And guys, in the Weather Center, I have a few questions coming in here. I'm keeping track of what's going on in our comments. And someone said, I thought the storm was picking up dry air, making this a possible hurricane. So as we talk about the forecast and it possibly becoming a Category 1 hurricane, can you talk about what elements contribute to that in order for it to become a hurricane? I know part of that is wind as well.
Yeah, a couple things happening with this system. The environment's not all that conducive here for further strengthening as far as going to a Category 2 or Category 3. There's a brief window here where we could get some gradual strengthening up to a Category 1. You can see the latest information there as of 2 o'clock. There was some Saharan dust, some drier air trying to get entrained into the system. Really not going to impact what's going to happen here with Elsa as it's moving north at 9. I want to walk you through this advisory as we're starting to get all the pieces. Usually we get a full advisory at 11 a.m., 5 p.m., but at 2 o'clock we get this intermediate advisory. We received a special statement at 1:45 indicating that Elsa has strengthened, and the hurricane hunters are continuing to sample the northeastern side, and we might possibly have another special statement here as the hurricane hunters still might find winds of 75 miles per hour, which would put Elsa at hurricane status as it's 95 miles northwest of Key West, and that pressure is falling, which indicates a strengthening system. I want to walk you through the forecast track here because the biggest changes are we are now going to see a hurricane off the coastline of southwest Florida as early as this afternoon and this evening. That wind is forecast to be 75 miles per hour, and with a hurricane forecast, there's now hurricane warnings for parts of the Big Bend of Florida. Let me give you over to those changes because we're finally seeing this here for the first time. You can see the yellows here. We've got tropical storm warning still in place for southwest Florida. That has not changed, but this is a change. A hurricane warning now in place there from Tampa Bay moving north there past Cedar Key as hurricane conditions are now expected within the next 30 36 hours. One of the other things that is now updated that we're seeing for the first time is this tropical storm force wind radii. This is the best estimate from the National Hurricane Center on where the core of the tropical storm and strong tropical storm force winds are. We have not seen any type of red, that 74-mile-per-hour or greater wind that indicates a hurricane up until now. Let's walk you through this here. I'm going to scrub the timeline and take you hour by hour. Those yellows, that's the weak tropical storm force winds, and as early as 5 o'clock begin to spread along our coastline, anywhere from Punta Gorda through the Lee Islands all the way down towards Naples and Marco Island. The shot you're seeing on the left is our storm tracker continuing to move here around southwest Florida, and what we're seeing behind Eric and I is that wind field. This is a critical timeline here of what we can expect tonight. Our storm foxes continuing out towards the LaBelle area, see if there are any reports of damage. And, of course, we will be sending them around town here throughout the evening. If we could take weather to full, I want to show you exactly what's going to happen here with the timeline and that wind field, because as early as 5 o'clock, we're seeing those tropical storm force winds move on shore. As we get a little closer through the evening and around sunset, we're seeing red show up for the first time. That hurricane force core stays offshore, but the stronger tropical storm force winds get very close to Sarasota County, perhaps even Charlotte County, but staying to the west of Cape Hayes and areas around Rotunda, Placida. As that storm continues to move to the north, you see the Category 1 hurricane indicated. I'm scrubbing back and forth there between 10 and midnight as that storm makes a very close pass there by Sarasota and Bradenton. Anytime you get a storm moving north like this, you get the wind rotating around. That's going to push water up into areas of Bradenton, Sarasota, and Tampa Bay. Eric, last year with Ada, we saw storm surge anywhere from 3 to 4 feet in Tampa Bay, and a lot of folks were taken off guard there with some of the flooding there in Tampa.
Yeah, not only that, but it'll also push water into the Lee County Islands, Sanibel, Pine Island Sound, Fort Myers Beach, Cayo Costa, Boca Grande, Cape Hayes Peninsula, Placida, into Charlotte Harbor as well. So not only is Tampa going to have to deal with a storm surge, but we are too.
You know, last year, just down the street here from our location in the Cape Coral and Pine Island, we saw that sailboat go free in Matlacha, and that was one of the more visual elements. It's going to be interesting as this storm is picking up a little strength, how much surge and how rough the surf gets along Sanibel as well, and we have our crews in place here throughout the morning.
Yeah, and you know what? High tide is right about now at Fort Myers Beach. So when we say a 2 to 4 foot storm surge, well, the tidal surge, you have to add the tide to that. And I looked, the tides right now are about 1.5 feet at high tide. So that would put it, Trent, between 3.5 and 5.5 tidal surge.
And you can see the storm surge warning that's still in place from Bonita Springs all the way up through the northern part of the state. We're still expecting a possibility of storm surge of 2 to 4 feet as the storm continues to pull off towards the north and making a closer pass than Ada. Ada was a storm that was around for a little while longer. It formed on Halloween and eventually dissipated on the 14th of November. But that one had a long time there to go down to the Yucatan Channel, gather a little more strength. This one, a little more short-lived there over the Gulf.
That's right. And, you know, it is encountering some wind shear. If you want to pull up Weather 1 really quick, full screen, and I'll show you some moderate to strong wind shear right off the southwest Florida coast on Weather 1. And, again, this is why we're not expecting Elsa to strengthen any more than maybe another 5 miles per hour, because if I put this in time, you see that wind shear all along the southwest Florida coast early this afternoon, mid-afternoon into the evening, right around the Tampa Bay area. So this strong wind shear is going to keep Elsa from strengthening into anything more than a very weak Category 1 storm. So that is good news.
We continue to watch some of the stronger rain bands wrap around, and Eric, it is still that leading band that extends all the way back over towards Miami-Dade and Broward County. If we go back over to Weather 2, I'm going to show you the latest radar tour. I'm going to have Eric pull up the gate to gate just to kind of watch these cells, because it looks like we have one crossing right over the center parts of the state, getting ready to move into Hendry County. And I'm curious if we're picking up any rotation. The cell I'm watching is right here south of Lake Okeechobee, and this is probably the next player in town for the possibility of a quick spin up. But bottom line is, any one of these cells in the northern part of Tropical Storm Elsa has the potential to put down a very brief tornado. And you can see all these little indistinct cells. Let me pause it on the latest radar loop, and I'm going to circle this guy. I'm going to go right here along US 27, I-75 here where 595 hits. Every one of these little cells has the potential for rotation, and they are sliding in our direction across the center of the state, and areas in Hendry County would be the first ones to see these cells move through. We also have another batch of heavy rain and some cells, distinct cells, right off mainland Monroe, west of Flamingo and south of the 10,000 Island area. Let me clear off the telestration. We'll put this back into motion. You can see these cells continuing to wrap to the north. And Eric, as you're looking to the gate-to-gate, anything impressive over there?
No, it looks more impressive on the storm relative velocity between right around the West Palm Beach and Hendry County line. Other than that, we're really not seeing all that much gate-to-gate, only around 10 miles per hour. That was the storm that you were picking up. A little more impressive north of Clewiston, as you can see, the green and the red pretty close together, the wind toward and away from the radar in a very tight area. But again, the gate-to-gate only about 12 miles per hour. So I don't think we're really seeing anything significant tornado-wise here.
I'm going to take the radar over along the Peace River here between Punta Gorda and Venice. Are you seeing any gate-to-gate shear or any type of rotation? These are those storms that are right there paralleling I-75 between 17 and 41.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything there at all. Nope, right about 10 miles per hour.
These storms obviously have the potential to put down some gusty winds over tropical storm force strength throughout the day. All of southwest Florida is now encountering the heavy rain, and some of these cells are still picking up a couple lightning strikes. It's pretty rare here in tropical systems. The cells just move too quickly, but this cell that we watched move past LaBelle over 80 continues to put down a couple of lightning strikes there just north of Babcock Ranch as it approaches 31.
How does the storms look north of Lehigh Acres and east of Lehigh Acres? I'm seeing a couple signatures on the storm relative velocity. The gate-to-gate only about 10 to 15 miles per hour, but yet again, it could be the start of something.
Matter of fact, if we could, in boxes, can we put Weather 1 and Weather 2 side by side? We've got them roughly on the same view, and this is the area we're watching there between Lehigh Acres, Manatee Park, right there along 80. This cell is rapidly moving off to the northwest at about 20 to 25 miles per hour, and Eric's picking up a little signature there, and the question is exactly how much. The live radar is on your right, looping over the past hour, and Eric, you've got the velocity on the left.
That's right, yeah, and earlier we saw the gate-to-gate shear around 89 miles per hour when we actually had people on the ground saying, hey, I saw a funnel cloud, I saw a tornado. I don't think we're seeing that at 17 miles per hour, and the signature isn't as distinct here as it was when we had that tornado warning about 30 minutes ago.
Monitoring the chat here right now, the National Weather Service has no significant weather advisories. There are currently no warnings for severe thunderstorms or tornadoes here in southwest Florida, but we are watching these cells wrap around the northern fringe here of Tropical Storm Elsa. The ones that are getting our attention is this one right here on the line between Palm Beach and Glades County. A couple of more distinct cells over towards Broward, and the reason we're watching the East Coast is all of these are wrapping around, and eventually we'll be moving through Glades County right there on the line with Hendry and Charlotte County. So this is something we're watching. We had reports from the National Weather Service at one time. They were watching a cell down near Port of the Islands. That one quickly moved out over the Gulf of Mexico. And as you look at the radar here, this is strengthening Tropical Storm Elsa, forecast to become a hurricane as it moves off our coastline later on today. All of the banding features you see here over the Gulf still have to move in our direction. So it will be the southern parts of Collier as the storm is slowly now moving north at 9.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Orange Tree area. In fact, we're seeing a small signature of storm relative velocity and gate-to-gate shear pretty close to 20 miles per hour, about 18 miles per hour. Again, probably not a funnel cloud, but maybe the start of some rotation in this storm, and maybe we can see that on radar. Yeah, you can right there.
There's the live radar picture to the right. The area we're looking at is between Ave Maria and Immokalee Road, and this is going to continue to pull across the turn there in Immokalee Road north of Orange Tree. The live radar sweeping around there, showing this cell, possible some rotation there around Rookery Lane. Pioneer Road will be next up as the storm is moving pretty rapidly. They've been moving 20 to 30 miles per hour. If we could go back to boxes real fast, Eric, what are you seeing there with the latest rotation values?
I'm not seeing much. It just went down. It was at 18 miles per hour, the gate-to-gate shear. Now I believe it's down to 4 miles per hour. So again, as fast as these storms amp up, they wind right back down sometimes.
If that storm were to develop a little more rotation and some survive the trip into parts of Lee County. It would be there along I-75 there north of Estero, which would likely see that storm later on. But the good news is Eric has seen some very, very weak gate-to-gate shear. We're doing this live here and kind of taking you on a little radar tour because these storms are moving through southwest Florida pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and take radar weather 2 full again. Let Eric continue to look around town. And what we're watching are these strong showers and thunderstorms moving on shore from Miami all the way through Fort Lauderdale. This tropical storm is not messing around. It's moving north now at 9, and that motion has slowed down. This is pretty typical with what happens here as these storms start to make that turn towards the north. And what has happened over the past couple of days, I'll just kind of give you a little synopsis here. We had an area high pressure that was sitting out here over the Atlantic, and the winds around the weekend and allowed the storm to start to turn to the north, and we saw that happen overnight last night. The storm finally emerging off the northern shore there of Cuba. Going back in here along the Peace River, we're watching these cells continue to pull north, eventually around 72 right now downtown Arcadia. Just some light rain showers with the heaviest thunderstorms south from Fort Ogden all the way towards 31. And we're going to send it over to Shari here. We're going to continue to look at the radar. We got a couple of live interviews and live shots going. Shari, what's the latest here?
Yeah, Trent, so right now we are continuing our county-to-county coverage right now. So we want to take you to Charlotte County. The Charlotte County Emergency Management Team is holding a press conference right now. Our Calvin Lewis is there. Calvin, what are you hearing, and are we going to hear directly from officials soon?
Yeah, Shari, we actually just got here at the EOC Center, and we're actually joined alongside Patrick Fuller here. He's the director of the emergency management. And Patrick, hey, thank you so much for joining us on such short notice this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are kind of coping with right now here in the EOC.
As most of the counties along the west coast of Florida, we've been tracking Elsa for quite a while, several days now. The forecast has remained pretty steady. I think it's up to 70 miles per hour right now, sustained winds, which is on the high end of a tropical storm. Our main concerns are ensuring that the residents here are paying close attention to the storm. They're not venturing out as much as possible. Rainfall is certainly a concern. Some minimal storm surge between 2 and 4 feet is possible here later today and into the evening. But we want our residents to make sure they're paying close attention to the storm and they're not venturing out. This isn't the time to be out and about on the roadways.
A few areas here in southwest Florida are currently undergoing a tornado watch or even a tornado warning. What is that like right here, right now?
Us, as long, and about the lower southern half of the peninsula is under a tornado watch. That's pretty common with tropical cyclones. It increases the possibility of tornado activity, and that watch reflects that. As the day goes on, it wouldn't shock me if we had some tornado warnings in our area. I know we've already seen some in southwest Florida, but it goes along with tropical weather. They have the ability to spawn off tornadoes.
What are some of those things that residents can do right now at this moment in preparation for Elsa, or even, say, in preparation for a tornado that are still here in Charlotte County?
Well, if they're in their homes, I suggest that they remain there. Right now is not the time to be out and about. If they fall under tornado warning, same rules apply to any other tornado. Try to find an interior room in your home with no windows. If you'll get a few minutes notice on a tornado warning over most cell phones, and that's when you need to seek shelter.
Now, we're expected to see Elsa here within the next 24 hours, for the remaining 24 hours at least, as it makes its way up through Florida. I guess just how long are you guys going to be here monitoring the storm?
We'll have staff here, most likely through the evening, monitoring conditions. Again, we want to make sure that, if there's any localized flooding, either due to storm surge or heavy rainfall, that we're keeping a close eye on that. And if any operations are necessary, that we can take action rather quickly.
And any sort of ways that residents can sort of keep track with you guys, if you guys could notify them in any way. I'm not sure if there's maybe an app available or even a website that you guys have.
Well, we utilize Alert Charlotte. It's at alertcharlotte.com. They can register there for emergency notifications, as well as following all of our social media accounts in the county. We issue out, the same message. It's a unified message of all emergency information and just good to know information via those means.
All right, Patrick. Hey, thank you again so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, so Charlotte County EOC there, and you can find out more info and keep up to date and keep track of Elsa by simply heading over to our website at fox4now.com. Shari, we'll swing it on back to you over now in the studio.
Calvin, thank you so much for that update. Again, we have team coverage throughout Southwest Florida this evening, keeping track of Tropical Storm Elsa. Fox 4 is your go-to for weather coverage during hurricane season and throughout the year. In fact, I'd like to show you right now who is in our weather center. You are looking at all of our meteorologists, our entire team. Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley. We've got meteorologist Eric Stone, meteorologist Trent Eric, and meteorologist Cindy Presler. When there is a major weather event in our area, we've got you covered right here. You can see it. Our team is here. All hands on deck, both on air, on and online, and on our streaming devices as well. So at this time, I want to turn it over to you guys right now. We know that we are tracking Tropical Storm Elsa. What is the latest when it comes to Elsa?
Well, first of all, this doesn't happen very often.
We never see each other.
We don't know each other.
This is great.
And I'm trying to remember the first time we've seen each other all in person since the pandemic, and I've got to go way back. I think we had a breakfast together, and we sat down and
a year and a half ago, maybe.
So this is not the way I wanted to meet you all again. But
I kind of like it.
Yeah, but here we are. We're doing what we've got. Eric and I are getting ready to hand off to Derek and Cindy, and we've got to do a lot of computer swaps. Get some new graphics loaded in, but we're going to take a breath here, and we're going to reset.
Right. Drink a little water.
We're going to get Cindy and Derek kind of up to speed here. What we've got, and welcome to the party, guys.
You've
got to be busy. We've got a tropical storm which is strengthening just off our coastline. As it moves north now, the National Hurricane Center is indicating that we could have a hurricane. They issued a special 145 statement. The hurricane hunters have been in and around this system. They found winds that supported 70 miles per hour. Caveat, they haven't explored the northeastern quadrant yet. So they're saying that they could have a hurricane on their hands already. As soon as we get that information coming in with the dropsondes, be ready for another special statement.
Well, that's the way I was looking at the radar this morning. It did look like the radar presentation was becoming a little bit more defined. It kind of looked more like a tropical cyclone than it did earlier this morning when it kind of had that squeezed flat look. So we've been getting some of these rain bands now. So, you've been covering some of these tornado warnings. And right now it looks like most of them have been in that leading edge because that's where some of the air has been relatively undisturbed. Through most of Southwest Florida, we kind of had a steady, cool rain here throughout the morning, and it's kind of stabilized the atmosphere. What happens with these tornadic storms that develop in these rain bands is they tend to like to develop in areas where there's a little bit more instability. That's kind of what we're seeing there on the very leading edge of those as they move off towards the north.
And that indeed was where we saw, as you guys were getting into work, we were tracking 2 tornado warnings. They were back to back. The last one expired at 2 o'clock, where we had some pretty significant rotation. At one point, Eric was tracking 89 miles per hour gate-to-gate shear. So the Hendry County Emergency Management Office, we contacted them. They had reports of a funnel cloud / or tornado that possibly was on the ground there. We sent the Storm Fox out there. No reports yet of damage, but we definitely had a credible source. And that Storm Fox, guys, is going to continue to move around town this morning. We sent them out to the LaBelle area, and so far, no reports there of trees broken down, no power lines. So, of course, that is some great news.
Yeah, and it was in a rural area. So it started out about 9 miles east of Immokalee and then went toward the Felda area and then crossed State Road 29. And by the time it got to LaBelle and Palm Beach Boulevard, the tornado warning had expired. So that's good news there. Yeah,
we're going to have to watch some of those other bands, though, just offshore, especially southwest of Collier County there.
Go to those double boxes. Yeah, that's perfect real fast. And Derek, add a little more there to what you were talking about, this becoming a little more of a, I don't want to say classic tropical cyclone, but it definitely looks a lot better.
Well, you see the center of circulation there just offshore, and then you're getting more of that banding that you see there, those dark red colors, those rain bands. And what we look for in those, what we're going to be watching for throughout the afternoon, will be little spin-ups in there. Sometimes you can get these very brief spin-ups like you've been seeing, and those are the ones you got to watch out for that tornado potential. But you can see that it looks a lot more. I was looking at it early this morning when we left work last night about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and then got home and kind of looked at things again. It just did not, it looked squashed. It was dealing with that upper level shear, but for some reason, it's taking advantage of that warm water, that low to mid 80 water out there, and it's trying to tighten up. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it's trying to tick up a little bit.
Yeah, and you can see the rain is almost wrapped completely around the center of circulation. This is something that we hadn't seen yesterday. We hadn't even seen that this morning. So definitely showing signs of strengthening on radar.
Right, and I don't know, with the 2 o'clock advisory, the tropical storm force wind field, had it expanded any? was there, because that's really going to be key with the coastal areas, especially up into Charlotte County and Sarasota County, as those areas will have that potential. Looks like they're still
70.
Still 70 miles. Let's see what tropical storm force winds extend outward 70 miles from the center. So we're still going to be looking at the strongest winds very close to the coast. The farther inland you get, those winds are not going to be quite as strong. I think really the biggest threats for us here in Southwest Florida through the rest of the afternoon will be the flooding threat, because we've already picked up, 2 to 4 inches in many locations, and as you can see, there's way more coming up behind that out towards the south, and then we're going to be watching that tornado threat too.
And Derek, here it is, that wind radii graphic, the best guess from the National Hurricane Center. One thing you notice, we have red on there for the first time as we're forecasting a hurricane. Right here is the closest approach. So right there, the 7 o'clock hour, when we're wrapping up the normal versions of Fox 4, it starts to get close. There's the red. There's the hurricane force winds as it's sliding off to the north. So it looks like that really damaging core of tropical storm force winds should stay off of our coastline.
Yeah, and that's good news for us, of course. With the way the Florida West Coast, the way it's shaped and it kind of angles in like that, and the way the storm is approaching the coast, you're going to see those stronger winds near the coast from coastal Lee County, but really from Charlotte County northward, especially up towards the Tampa Bay area. They're going to be dealing with that, and Sarasota are going to be dealing with those stronger winds there a little bit farther north, too.
And there's the hurricane warning that they issued north of our viewing area there from Tampa Bay all the way up past Cedar Key, as they are anticipating hurricane conditions now within the next 36 hours.
Yeah, and taking a look at Weather 1 on live Doppler radar, I've circled potentially the last really strong band of rain that will hit Collier County. Notice to the south, not much. There's some weaker bands, but most of the rain in Collier County now. And one more strong band as I put this in motion again. As you can see, this will make its way to 10,000 Islands toward Marco Island the next hour or so, and then into the Naples area maybe an hour to hour and a half. And then behind that, there's really not much. So that is good news for them.
Yeah, it looks like some dry air may be getting pulled into the south side. You'll see that a lot of times with these, especially when they start moving inland over land. You'll start to see the bottom part of it looks like it's been chewed in half, and that's because some of that dry air is being pulled in. So that's not surprising there. So we're going to be watching that heavy rain threat over the next few hours, as well as the tornado threat.
Eric, before we hit it off again, let's watch a couple more of those cells. That one that we were monitoring moving from Palm Beach County into parts of Glades, or Hendry, I should say. What is the gate-to-gate shear? We're watching this guy right here.
Yep, south of Clewiston, correct?
Yeah, it looks like it's got a little bit more of a strengthening to it. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, only about 10 miles per hour, so nothing crazy.
All right, and one other cell caught my attention here before we hand it over. It's a small one. If we go back over to Weather 2 quickly, I'm going to send Eric on the gate-to-gate shear. Go over to I-75 here around Miramar Lakes. Let's pull Weather 2 up real quick, and we'll show you that cell as it continues to move there around Estero. This is the one of those leading cells there, and it's pretty small. Not real impressed with it on the radar. I'm just curious if you were seeing it.
It's actually a little bit better looking on our relative velocity than the other one in Hendry County, about 21 miles per hour. Gate-to-gate shear. And again, for anyone that is new to that term, we look for values around 50 miles per hour, and then we assume, okay, there's at least a funnel cloud and possibly a tornado on the ground. 21 miles per hour, we don't really assume that at all.
You know, let's go back to Weather 2 real fast, and I'm going to bring Cindy in. Cindy, you just drove in.
I did.
How was it? Tell us how it is out there. What were some of the obstacles that you encountered?
I was coming in from Colonial, east of I-75, and not bad at all. It was just light rain, very little wind, no problem. Oh, Derek has a very different experience.
Yes, I-75 up through Collier County, and it was very lots of semi-spray that I like to call it. So it was very difficult to see. Traffic was moving along fine. There have certainly been worse instances during afternoon storms of driving on I-75, but it was a little inconvenient, and of course a lot of folks out, seems like.
Yes, there are a lot of people out. Yeah, this has not kept people inside.
No, unfortunately, this is a day where a lot of people went back to work after the holidays, so we're going to have a lot of people on the roads here this evening. We've been watching the FDOT cameras throughout the morning, and that semi-spray was definitely evident. It is a gloomy day there. Matter of fact, I believe, is this Harbor View Road there on the FDOT cameras on I-75? Yeah, that's one of our favorites in the morning. That's a pretty iconic shot here. And you can see the roads a little slow there, definitely wet. We've got the Storm Fox out and about this morning as well, and the same idea. You see the wet roads, it's just gloomy. Once you get in some of these heavier rain bands, though, obviously the winds are going to pick up, and we're going to watch for the potential rotation. There is a tornado watch box until 11 o'clock tonight, so this threat is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. As we're approaching the 3 o'clock hour, we have a lot to kind of digest. A lot's changed here in the last hour or so.
All right, again, so you guys have been kind of rocking it this morning with all the coverage, and of course, Cindy and I will be taking you through this afternoon and this evening as Elsa tries to strengthen as it makes its way off towards the north there. So we're going to be watching that center of circulation there as it passes just off to our west. I do think, though, that wind field will stay enough offshore to where the strongest winds will be restricted to near the coast. So that's good news. But again, the flooding threat and the tornado threat will be the ones we'll be watching here throughout the night tonight.
All right. Going to give you guys just a little bit of space here. Kind of reset. And we're going to send it back over to Shari here to kind of wrap things up, let you know what we got in store here for the evening. And we're going to kind of reset here as well and get you guys up to speed on the computers.
Guys, I did really love seeing all of you guys together. It's so nice. And thank you so much for keeping us informed. No one does it like the Fox 4 weather team. I'm convinced of that. Southwest Florida, I just want to give you an update on closures and openings right now. So if you take a look at your screen, you can see here we've got an update in regards to schools, camps, and colleges. I saw someone on Facebook ask, why are you updating about schools? But remember that summer school is in session during this time. So we want to make sure those students and their families are informed as well. So we know that DeSoto County schools will be open on Wednesday. They will be open tomorrow. Lee County Schools is planning to make a decision after 6 p.m. Of course, they're watching the track of Tropical Storm Elsa just like we are. Collier County Schools and Charlotte County Schools tell us their plan is to be determined. Now, you can trust that Fox 4 is keeping a close eye on those updates, and we will bring those to you at this time. But as of right now, DeSoto County Schools does plan to be open as of right now, and tomorrow they will be open. And then again, Lee County Schools is planning to make a decision after 6 p.m. We are continuing our county-to-county coverage, tracking Tropical Storm Elsa at this time. A few updates that we are expecting. We just heard from Charlotte County Emergency Management, and we are waiting to hear from Lee County Emergency Management as well. They are planning to hold a press conference at 3 p.m., and you can trust that Fox 4 is going to bring you that right here on air for you and bring you any updates both on air and online. Now, a look here at your screen for further updates on schools, camps, and college closures. Total recap for you. That way you're not missing any information. I've been keeping track of your comments on Facebook, and I know sometimes it gets confusing. So just for a little bit of clarity, Lee, Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto County Schools will be closed. Charlotte County, City of Northport summer camps are canceled as well. Then Rasmussen University in the Fort Myers location, Tampa, Brandon, and their Central Pasco campuses will be closed as well. And then Florida Southwestern is offering remote classes only. So those are the current closures and updates in regards to schools. Now, I want to let you know as well, we have heard from Lee County government and facilities. They closed at 2 p.m. Normally, when you think of county offices, you think of them closing at 5, but those are closed ahead of Tropical Storm Elsa. In addition, the Lee County Department of Health, so for your COVID testing or your COVID vaccinations, they are also closed. They closed at 2 p.m. today as well, in just an abundance of caution. Lee County is also reminding you, and whether you live in Lee County, Charlotte County, DeSoto County, a reminder here to stay off the bridges. We are talking about a storm that could progress into a Category 1 hurricane. So, of course, you want to make sure that you are staying safe and alert when it comes to your commute and being on the roads. And speaking of the roads, guys, I see the Storm Fox is on the road right now, taking a look. Where exactly is our Storm Fox right now, guys? You can kind of see wet roads. That's what we're working with right now in Southwest Florida. A lot of rain. And here's why we actually ended up on air right now. Our weather team was tracking a tornado warning at the Lee and Hendry County line, so kind of close to the Felda area out there. Now, that tornado warning has expired, but this is why our Storm Fox is live now in LaBelle. We're keeping track of conditions in this area right now, and we know that, yes, we do not anticipate seeing a direct hit from Tropical Storm Elsa, but this is a prime example of why we're keeping a close eye on the potential impact, because we know that we we just saw a tornado warning not too long ago. Again, that warning has expired, but we are functioning under a tornado watch right now, and that will not expire until about 11 p.m. unless there is a further update. Now, we want to make sure that we give you this information as well. Speaking of our roadways and the weather and weather conditions, we have learned of an accident. This is a traffic crash in Cape Coral, I believe, off of Del Prado Parkway. The Cape Coral Police Department is on the scene of a traffic crash there at Del Prado South and Coral Point Drive. All southbound lanes of Del Prado are impacted, so they're asking that you just avoid that area at this time. And we've been hearing from emergency management, they're just telling us, hey, if you don't need to be on the roads, please stay off of them, just because we don't necessarily know what type of impact we could see when it comes to Tropical Storm Elsa. Our weather team has told us that this storm could potentially become a Category 1 hurricane, but yet we don't know what those bands can bring, as we're seeing right here. Again, a reminder, near that LaBelle, Felda area, that we did see a funnel cloud in that area, and we heard some reports on the ground as well on Facebook, people who actually saw that funnel cloud, and so just a reminder that we don't know what could happen, and so we just want to keep you and err on the side of caution. If you're wondering what this is right here, this is that accident on the right-hand side of your screen. This is that accident we were just talking about. I'm sorry, this is another accident. This is our FDOT camera on I-75. I just mentioned an accident in Cape Coral. This is another one that we're tracking. Again, you can see it's off to the left-hand side of the road there, that you can see emergency response vehicles there, and a little bit of a slowdown on the right-hand side. Luckily, it looks like traffic is still flowing in that area, but again, weather impacts traffic, right? It impacts a lot of aspects of our lives. So again, if you're seeing rain, if you're seeing weather conditions in your area, they could lead, these weather conditions could lead to a tough time on the roadways. So just a reminder, if you're out on the roads, you're driving about, you want to make sure that you drive safely. Now, again, we cut into our on-air coverage because we want to make sure that you are staying on top of Tropical Storm Elsa, and we're bringing you the latest updates. We are in the middle of our transition right now. Meteorologist Trent Eric and meteorologist Eric Stone, we're here all morning bringing you the latest on Tropical Storm Elsa. Now we want to send it back over to Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley and Meteorologist Cindy Presler, picking up where Stone and Trent Eric left off, but keeping Southwest Florida updated, because that's what we do.
Yeah, that's really kind of the biggest thing that we're going to be doing here for the rest of the afternoon, is making sure that you guys are safe and know exactly what's going on. At this point, other than the heavy rain that we're expecting and that we've already seen in many locations, and the possibility of more of these tornado warnings coming out throughout the evening, and also that threat for some gusty winds near the coast, I really don't expect it to get much worse than this. I think that as the track continues moving off towards the north, we're going to be looking at those stronger winds moving up towards the Tampa Bay area, and that's where they're likely going to be seeing the core of those winds as Elsa is trying to make a run at hurricane status before it makes landfall, and it is forecast to do so as we go into later on tonight and into early Wednesday. This is kind of a wide overview of what's going on. You can see these rain bands that continue to rotate around the center of circulation here. The center is located just offshore here. From Naples, I'd say probably about 60, 70 miles or so. It's going to pass close enough, again, with the tropical storm force wind field going out 70 miles from the center. As it gets up closer, perhaps maybe just due west of Lee County, that's where we could see some of those tropical storm force winds start encroaching on the coast as we go through the late afternoon and evening hours. But if you live farther inland, the rain and also the tornado threat will be the main things that you have to be concerned about. So Trent and Eric were talking about some of these storms earlier. There is one coming out of Palm Beach County right now that I'm kind of keeping a close eye on. We'll see exactly what's going on with this one. It does kind of have that backwards, that C shape to it, if you will, and that does indicate some perhaps some rotation. You can see it right there just off to the south of Clewiston, and that's going to continue moving towards the northwest. It'll be moving just west of Clewiston and likely between there and LaBelle over the next few minutes. So we'll see if that one tries to spin up, and they do issue a tornado warning on that. I'm not getting any indication from the National Weather Service in Miami that they're going to pull a tornado warning on that one at the present time. But you can see it's just these darker red blobs here that are these little small mini supercell thunderstorms that potentially could produce a brief tornado as they move on by. I'm going to switch radars here so you can kind of see. Now, these are very healthy, but they're about to move out of our viewing area. Just south of Arcadia, we're watching these moving off towards the north, and they do have a little bit of rotation with them just south of Arcadia and also getting up into Sarasota County. But this is starting to get up into Manatee and Sarasota County out of our viewing area. So that's good news there. But still looking at light to moderate rain across Lee County, across Hendry County, across Collier County, and extending southward towards Marco Island. And we've got that other band that is just offshore that's going to be pushing into Marco Island and Everglades City here in the next several minutes. So another band of rain. Could even get some gusty winds, 20 to 30 miles per hour with that as it moves on through. But again, the latest track from the National Hurricane Center looks like this. This is the 2 o'clock advisory. Winds at 70 miles per hour, and the pressure's down to 1,000 millibars. If you remember watching late last night, early this morning, the pressure was holding right around 1,007, 1,009 millibars. Whenever the pressure number gets lower, that indicates the storm is strengthening, and that is exactly what has occurred. The wind is north at 9, or at least is moving north, I should say, at about 9 miles per hour. And you can see the track is going to take it just to the west of the Cape, Sanibel, and Captiva by 8 o'clock tonight. So I do think, though, once the center of circulation starts lifting north of our area, the winds are going to start turning back onshore, and that may increase the coastal flooding threat, at least for part of our area through the evening and overnight hours, but it will also decrease the tornado threat. The reason why that we're seeing that tornado threat on the east side is because of the way the winds are stacking up from the surface aloft. They're kind of turning in a clockwise fashion and counterclockwise fashion, I should say, and as a result of that, it's creating spin in the atmosphere for the development of tornadoes. But as that wind starts moving onshore, the shear should decrease, and we should see an end overall to that tornado threat. Tropical storm warning does remain in effect. It now includes inland portions of Charlotte and Lee County, so we'll be watching that threat for some gusty winds up to tropical storm force as we go through later on tonight. But notice the inland areas are not going to be seeing winds quite as strong. That wind field showing exactly where the strongest winds will be, and they're going to be staying offshore, where you see the orange colors, and even in the last few frames there, you see a little bit of red showing up. That's when it transitions to a hurricane. So you could see how the way the Florida West Coast coastline is shaped, you can see how those strongest winds are going to be making their approach based on the angle at which the hurricane is making its way towards the coast, and the way the Florida coastline is shaped on the west side, at least the west coast. The strongest winds are going to be approaching the coast here up into Sarasota County and into parts of Charlotte County up around the Cape Hayes Peninsula. So that's where I think later on this evening into tonight, that's where some of the strongest winds will be. And, of course, we will get grazed by some of those stronger winds in coastal Lee County as well. But I do expect improving conditions as the evening goes on for Collier County and also for our inland counties as the system continues lifting off towards the north. You can see that, again, by midnight tonight, the system will be lifting north, and I think by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, the system will be ancient history. To kind of give you an idea of the winds that we're expecting, this is just one of our computer models. You can kind of see that through the afternoon, we're going to be looking at those winds. And again, they could get up to the 50 to 60 mile per hour range of those very coastal areas. You can see where the purple colors are. That's where those strongest winds will be out of the southeast. Now, I want to show you, once we get into later on tonight, notice how the winds turn onshore. That's when the wind shear will decrease and the tornado threat will decrease as well, when we start to turn those onshore winds there. And I think the coastal flood threat will start to increase as well. So again, the strongest winds with this system should be staying just offshore and passing just north of Fort Myers. So we're looking at coastal Charlotte County and points north, seeing the strongest winds based on the angle of attack that the storm is going to be making its approach towards the coast. Patrick, let's send it over to you. You have some information, correct?
All good. Thank you.
At this time, we're keeping track of what is going on there. They're going to be holding a press conference any minute now, so that is what we're going to tune into in a second. Derek, you're right. Patrick Nolan is here in studio tonight with us. Our team is all hands on deck right now. And guys, we also have Jane Monreal, our evening anchor, sitting right next to me as well, preparing to bring you the latest on Tropical Storm Elsa as well. But of course, as I just mentioned, the Lee County Emergency Management is holding a press conference. Let's listen into what they have to say.
Everybody ready? Betsy, we good?
Yep.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We'd like to talk about this storm, give you an update, and we really appreciate the media's help in disseminating this information. And it's vitally important to get for people to hear what's been going on. My name is Roger Desjardins. I'm the county manager, and in just a moment I'll introduce the chair of the county commission, Kevin Ruane. But before that, we've been monitoring this storm since July 1st, this past Friday, and it's been just that, a tropical storm. The Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, has never given us an indication that they thought it would become a hurricane. So with that, it's been a fairly stable storm. As you know, it had sustained winds of about 60 miles an hour as it began to cross the island of Cuba. As it came out the north side, winds were down to about 50 miles an hour and then ultimately 40 miles an hour, and that was sustained and fairly stable. Well, at about 1:45 this afternoon, the Hurricane Hunter airplanes were flying the storm, and they found that the wind velocities were now sustained at 70 miles an hour. The forecast track has been fairly stable. As you know, you've been watching just like we have. The forward rate of speed of the storm is about 14 miles an hour, but what we expect locally is that starting at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to see the winds become variable and begin to increase in velocity through about midnight. Exactly what those winds are going to be is very difficult to tell. The eye of the storm is really going to be about 125 miles or so off the coast, and the tropical storm winds extend out farther than hurricane force winds, so it's difficult to say how that will ultimately affect Lee County, the coast, and inland. If the storm stays on its current forecast track, should be a non-event. On the other hand, if the storm track moves closer to the coastline and parallels the state of Florida, then we're going to see more effect from the storm. So with that preamble, I'd like to introduce the chair of the county commission, Kevin Ruane.
Thanks, Roger. Good afternoon. We're here to give you an update because the National Weather Service has expanded the tropical storm warnings for Tropical Storm Elsa to include inland Lee County as well as coastal Lee County. With weather conditions exceeded to deteriorate this afternoon, Lee County government has decided to close offices and facilities at 2 p.m. To ensure people can get home safely, we sent employees not needed for Tropical Storm Elsa home today. We encourage residents and businesses to make decisions in the coming hours that are right for them. Please take personal responsibility in making your decisions. If you go home now, stay home. Please don't go out. Operationally, our Lee County Parks and Recreation summer camps will remain open so the children get picked up. Lee Tran is currently operating for those who need transportation. We're planning on taking the buses off the roads at around 5 p.m. Trash pickup today is wrapping up, so we're on a regular schedule. Given the current National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center information, Lee County is declaring a state of emergency. We are doing this with an abundance of caution. We've been in constant communication with our EOC partners. At this time, shelters are not open. The storm has been fairly stable. We're preparing to respond to anything that changes that go along with this. Now's the time to make your way home, given the adjustments to the forecast. Thank you. Questions?
What does the state of emergency mean in this instance?
In this case, state of local emergency provides us with some extraordinary powers in the event that we have severe damage or flooding. By example, we could waive procurement code, for example, if we need to bring in a contractor in short order to help with some of that work. And then it also makes federal funding available should FEMA decide to pay for some of the storm.
Are there any extraordinary police type powers that also accrue with the state of emergency?
Well, according to Florida Statute 252, actually state of local emergency provides something akin to police powers, although we've never exercised those. That gives the county commission and the county manager and the sheriff all the authority they need to protect the public.
Are there any areas within the county that we're worried about more so than others right now?
And you're talking about flooding, perhaps?
The storm in total.
Well, the storm in total, if we have a tidal surge between 4 and 6 feet, we would expect to see low-lying areas of the county. We all know where those are. They're traditional areas that flood, and then it will push water inland up the tributaries. But as you may recall, and Commissioner, you want to talk about actions we've taken since 2017? Sure.
So I think it's important to remember Hurricane Irma, and there's many things that we actually put in place to prevent any type of flooding for this event. So we learned a lot from Hurricane Irma, and obviously as a result of that, we put in many measures we think they'll be very effective during this situation.
The emergency declaration, is it going to expire at a known time, or is it indefinite from here on out?
It will expire within a week, and then would have to be renewed by the County Commission.
Is there any indication of any travel difficulties on any particular roadways that could be anticipated during what you're hearing, or is the water going to drain away nicely?
Yeah.
We're not aware of any roads that have any issues whatsoever. We think it's all going to subside.
One of the big questions, and I know it was handled on social media today, bridges in the county are not going to be closing down, correct?
We right now don't anticipate any of the bridges closing. As you know, these rain bands come through, and that's where the heaviest weather is. So conditions are different throughout the county depending on where the bridge is. The Lee County Sheriff's Department will be monitoring those bridges and will close them as necessary.
For the county as a whole, is there a specific point when we talk about wind velocity where emergency responses will take their safety into consideration before hitting the road?
It used to be that 40 miles an hour sustained winds, we took ambulances off the road, but we now have more sophisticated modeling for those vehicles, and so it depends on where in the county we encounter those winds and which of the vehicles we're talking about. Some of the fire department vehicles, for example, can stay out on the road at much higher velocities.
If we reach that point, is that something that will be communicated?
Yeah, if we reach that point, we will be posting that information on on all of our social media platforms and disseminating that to the media as well.
The important thing is if somebody is in need to still call 911?
If someone needs emergency service today, right now, yes, by all means call 911 and continue to do that unless we tell you otherwise.
And does the emergency declaration open up any hotlines for people that need information?
Well, probably the best thing for people to do to stay well informed is go to our website, legov.com, and right on the home page there's a button to click.
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone's time. Be safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you are just joining us, we just heard from Lee County Emergency Management. Right now, they are updating us in regards to tracking Tropical Storm Elsa, which our team has been doing all day. Wow, yeah. What a day, Jane.
We're getting started. We've been preparing this for days. You can see Cindy and Derek in the Weather Center live now as we are just passing the 3 o'clock hour. Of course, Patrick Nolan in the newsroom, Sherry Armstrong, as well as myself.
Yeah, and before we toss it over back to Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley and Cindy Presler and get some insight from Patrick as well, we do want to let you know that Lee County has issued a state of emergency. So that just means additional resources will be available if they are needed in regards to response efforts. Also want to let you know that county officials are asking local businesses and people who live in the area to just make smart decisions right now when it comes to the weather over the next 24 hours or so. Also, if you use the bus system like Lee Tran, they want you to know that buses are operating right now, but they do say that they are going to take the buses off of the road at 5 p.m. And we know a lot of questions have been coming in regards to bridges. So just a heads up for you that the county says they don't anticipate bridges closing, but the Sheriff's Department, the Lee County Sheriff's Office, will close them as necessary. And we have received a question in regards to shelters. Will there be a shelter open in the event that you or your family feel like you need to go to a different and safer location? The county says at this time shelters are not open, but you can trust us to keep you updated if that changes. At this time, I want to toss it over to the Weather Center with Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley and Meteorologist Cindy Presler working hard to keep us informed.
Yes, Cindy, we've been kind of dealing with this here for a while. You know, we did, of course, a little bit last night, watching it as it was leaving Cuba, and it's now making that intensification. It's starting to intensify now just offshore. And you can see there on satellite, and one thing I want to point out to you, and one of the reasons why the Hurricane Center really is kind of bullish on this thing intensifying is notice that the cloud pattern is kind of coming out into this V-type shape here. It's encountering some westerly shear, but I think what's happening is that we are seeing strong winds in the upper atmosphere kind of diverging, if you will. You see how they're spreading apart, and they're actually helping to enhance the strengthening of this system. A lot of times, sometimes you can see that if an upper level system gets close enough to it, but not too close to where it ends up being detrimental to it, it can actually act to enhance it. And there's also a frontal boundary to the north. So I think that's part of the reason why, along course with the warm water temperatures there, they're expecting a little bit of intensification, despite an otherwise hostile situation for the storm. But you can see that the big thunderstorms, those dark reds and maroons and purples that are just offshore, indicating where the strongest winds are and the strongest thunderstorms are within the center of circulation. But everything is really to the right. There's nothing on the left side. So that upper level shear is impacting it. Otherwise, we'd be looking at a much stronger system. But we do expect the strongest winds with this system, even though it is going to become potentially a Category 1 hurricane, to stay a bit offshore. Want to look at the forecast advisory here for the National Hurricane Center. Pressure down to 1,000 millibars. We're going to be seeing at the 5 o'clock advisory probably the pressure dropping down to the high 990s as this intensifies more. Winds now at 70, so it's only about 4 shy from becoming a hurricane, moving to the north at about 9 miles per hour. Meteorologist Cindy Pressler's been tracking the rain totals across the area that we've received. Cindy, what are you seeing? And what are some of the highest totals you've seen so far?
Right now, Marco Island of 2.66 inches of rain. That's the highest, and of course that would be you'd guess that it would be down in Marco because they're getting the rain bands first. But if you take a look at radar, I'm going to pull it in right around the Marco Island area, and we've got another heavy rain band coming in right now. This one does contain very heavy rain, and as it loops back to the north and west, that's the direction all of these little rain bands are going to be moving. Overall sliding to the north, but kind of rotating off to the north and west. So there's going to be some pretty heavy rain coming in right there with those red areas. You can see that. I'm going to pull that out again. I don't see a lot of lightning on these storms, though, so that certainly is good news. It's general rain, and you talked about that yesterday, Derek, would just be rain.
Yeah, you don't typically see lightning with these tropical systems unless you start getting some breaks in between the bands and you get a little bit of sunshine, some instability. You can get some lightning, and I did hear a little bit of thunder this morning with some of those rain bands as they initially move through. But take a look at some of these rainfall rates here with this band that is just approaching coastal portions of Collier County. And again, this is going to be one of the biggest threats we're going to be dealing with here for tonight. This evening and tonight will be the heavy rainfall, and we're looking at upwards of 2.5, 3-inch rainfall rates with this particular band. Now, it's very similar to what we would see during an afternoon thunderstorm, but the way this band is oriented, it's just kind of ramming itself into Marco Island, and it's really not making a whole lot of northward progress. So this is going to be a prolonged band of heavy rain as it moves on through. We still have that tornado watch that is in effect. This tornado watch goes until 11 o'clock. All the counties that you see outlined there, that tornado watch, again, effect until 11 o'clock tonight for the entire area, where we could be, again, looking at that potential for tornadoes with some of these outer bands as they move on through. So, again, the tropical storm warning, as you just heard from Lee County Emergency Management, the tropical storm warning has been extended inland for inland portions of Charlotte and Lee counties for that possibility of tropical storm force winds a little farther inland. And to kind of show you why, with the latest track, you can see the yellow indicates low to mid-end tropical storm force winds, most likely in gusts, as it approaches the coast here later on tonight, or later on this evening into tonight. And the way the Florida coastline is shaped, where you kind of see down towards Naples in the lower right, but then it kind of slants off to the upper left, the angle of attack of the storm towards the coast, and then you combine that with the shape of the coastline, you're going to see those stronger winds mainly from Lee County, coastal Lee County especially, northward through Charlotte and into Sarasota County. And then as it moves off towards the north, you can see that the orange and red colors indicating the stronger winds, the stronger tropical storm force winds, and the red colors indicating the hurricane force winds, the very small hurricane force wind field, by late tonight towards midnight will be approaching the Tampa Bay area. So by far, they are going to be seeing the worst of this storm up in the Tampa Bay area and points north as a result of the track of how far offshore it is and the angle of attack that is moving towards the Florida west coast. So we could be seeing things a lot worse here, but that does not look like it's going to be the case, given the fact that, again, the storm is going to be making that approach towards the coast. Winds throughout the afternoon. I've seen some gusts. We did have some tropical storm wind gusts down in Marco Island earlier this morning, around 40 miles an hour, and that's where you're going to be seeing it, closer to the coast, with those stronger wind gusts in the 30 to 40, maybe potentially 50-mile-an-hour range. But you get farther inland, away from the center of circulation and farther away from the storm, that's where the winds are not going to be quite as strong. This is the American model. I like the way this one's panning out because it's very similar to what we've seen so far during the day today. The winds have been roughly in the 20 to 30 miles per hour range at the highest in some of the gusts, with the exception down to Marco Island. As we go through the evening hours, notice that some of those oranges start showing up. Sanibel, Captiva, Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, Rotunda, Englewood. Those are the areas I think will have the best chance of some of the stronger wind gusts as it makes its closest approach to our coastline here in southwest Florida later on this evening. And, of course, the stronger winds are going to be going farther north up towards the Tampa area near the center of circulation. By tomorrow morning, we're still going to have some gusty winds around, but it's not going to be that bad. And they're going to be onshore. They're going to be more of an onshore wind as we go into the morning hours for your Wednesday. Kind of a wide overview. I'll give you the visible satellite so you can kind of see how the storm is setting up. And notice that the storm, the center of circulation, it's almost exposed. You can actually see it. There's a little curlicue there in the lower left part of your screen. But the actual rain, the reflectivity, all the rain and the rain bands are just to the right of the center. So the storm is still tilted like it was before, but for a different reason. Not because it's moving so fast, but because it's encountering some westerly wind shear that is actually tilting the storm over to the side. But despite that, it is undergoing some strengthening and is taking advantage of those very warm waters out in the eastern Gulf into the low to mid 80s right now. Now, we did have some tornado warnings throughout the morning. We had those earlier for portions of Glades and Hendry County. Right now, we are not seeing any storms now, or any storms at least in the immediate time frame that we are looking at for storms that could potentially produce some rotation. But we are going to keep an eye on this band that is moving onshore in Collier County. This one not necessarily has rotation with it, but it does have the threat for that heavy rain that we'll likely be seeing move across our area here over the next hour or so. Port of the Islands, Chokoloskee, Everglades City, Goodland, Marco Island, Lely, Golden Gate, Naples, all those areas will have that best chance for some heavy rainfall. Let's send it over to meteorologist Cindy Pressler for the latest on the track of the storm as it moves off towards the north on Weather 2.
Yeah, Weather 2, I just want to show you what the model, the guidance is saying, and where we think the heaviest rain is going to be over the next few hours now. This one does want to keep everything, the heaviest rain definitely just off the coast. And then it kind of winds up as we go into tonight. Heaviest rain right around Englewood, down to the Cape Coral area, Punta later on tonight into midnight. And then it pulls it on out of here. So I think once we get past midnight tonight, things are going to see a nice improvement with some scattered showers and storms in the area again tomorrow. That flow coming in behind Elsa as it moves out of here, much better conditions as a high pressure tries to move back in. How much rain could we still see starting today? These rainfall amounts, of course, are heavier to the north, heavier at the Cape Coral, Charlotte area, Port Charlotte, Punta, Englewood could see another 3 1/3 inches, and of course you could see heavier rain if you get within one of these thunderstorms, and that's why we're going to keep this flood watch in effect. This is until 7 o'clock. When does this end, this flood watch? I think this keeps going for quite some time.
It'll go through at least tonight. I haven't actually looked to see what time it ends, but it's going to go through at least later on tonight. And we're still going to have that band of rain coming in from the southwest tomorrow. So we're still going to have some showers around and maybe a thunderstorm, but it's not going to be nearly as widespread as what we're dealing with right now. Storm Fox making its way right now across the area. I'm not sure exactly where they're located now. If someone can kind of tell me in my ear where Storm Fox is. It looked like earlier it was down in South Lee County. But either way, if we could go back to that webcam shot from Marco Island, this is kind of what you could expect with these heavier bands as they move through. Notice that things aren't too crazy down there, so we're not looking at hurricane force wind gusts or even strong tropical storm force winds, but it's kind of blowing the palm trees around a bit. And really the rain is what's going to be the bigger issue with these bands as they move through and that isolated tornado threat. The heavy rain, though, is going to obscure your visibility, or at least it's going to drop off. So if you're out driving to this, I know driving into work today, even though the rain wasn't terribly heavy, it was a little dicey there for a while, just trying to see exactly where everybody was on the roadways. And you just kind of got to be careful when you're out there if you have to be out and about here throughout the afternoon. Let's take a look at the shot from our Storm Fox up in Punta Gorda, and you can see that it looks like they're kind of in between some of those rain bands now. They're not particularly heavy. We'll switch over to the Tampa radar so we can get a better perspective for that far north. And you can see that the rain is light to low-end moderate. You can see right in there, but so that's not surprising what they're seeing. They're not seeing some of the stronger stuff that they're seeing down into Marco Island, but it's just kind of we were saying even last week that when it appeared that Elsa was not going to intensify significantly, particularly once it moved over Cuba and was approaching Cuba, we felt like Tuesday would be just a highly inconvenient day, and that seems to be what this has turned out to be. Not even as bad as what we were dealing with Ada back in November. But again, back to the webcam shot you see over there at Marco Island. That's kind of what's moving into the area, and that's actually lifting north. So we're starting to see this line up along the Tamiami Trail in Collier and southwest Collier County. So if you live places like Goodland, Goodland looks like it just came through your area. If you live anywhere between Port of the Islands and Lely, that's where some of the heaviest rain is now. 951 heading north out of Marco Island. It's going to be a bit dicey getting up towards the Tamiami Trail. And we're also looking at some pretty decent downpours in and around Golden Gate. So Golden Gate City, Golden Gate Estates, back towards North Naples, down into the Naples area, Port Royal, down a little bit farther south, Key Wade Island, and northward towards South Lee County. So even in Bonita Springs, Lovers Key State Park, Fort Myers Beach, some downpours going on. We'll take a look at some of the rainfall rates. And again, they're not terrible. They're right around, looks like about a half an inch or so in some of these areas, half an inch to an inch with some of these rainfall rates in this particular area. But again, the heaviest rainfall rates at the moment are down here with this particular band. You pretty much stands out as you look at it. And these rainfall rates are approaching 3 inches per hour. And you see they're exceeding 3 inches per hour there. So that's the kind of rain we're going to be dealing with. And keep in mind, we've already seen significant amounts of rainfall the past several days with some of these afternoon storms, but also really since this morning we've had some pretty decent rainfall here across the area. So again, with the storm passing just off to our west, we're going to be waiting for the 5 o'clock advisory to see exactly how much more Elsa is going to strengthen before it makes its final approach towards the Florida coast, likely up towards Tampa and the Nature Coast later on tonight into early Wednesday morning. But this is good news for us. The way things are shaping up for us right now, it looks like, again, the worst that we're going to be seeing here will be later on this evening, likely towards sunset, for areas of coastal Lee County, northward into Charlotte and Sarasota County, where we could see some gusts in excess of 40 and 50 miles an hour. But for the most part, it looks like most of the area will be escaping the region from seeing those stronger winds. They're going to stay mainly offshore unless we get some crazy jog to the right, to the east, which I'm not anticipating at this point. So the strongest winds should stay just offshore and head up towards areas off towards our north. Now, we will see those gusty winds 20 to 30 miles an hour, especially for inland areas. You guys really aren't going to see much at all other than a few bands of rain and that continuing tornado threat at least through this evening. Cindy, you've got really the forecast of the winds here through this evening. Right?
Wind graphic, yeah. Right now, you're right, Derek. The strongest winds are definitely offshore because the core of Elsa is so tight. It's just a tiny little thing.
It is.
Very small, and that certainly is good for us. And I'm just looking at some obs here in the last hour. Punta Gorda, right now, wind gusts out of the southeast, gusting to 25 miles per hour. That's the strongest. Oh, Key West up to 45 miles per hour. Key West had a gust this morning of 70 miles per hour. So that's, yeah, they were dealing with some real strong winds down there. Key West right now, winds are gusting to 52 in some spots here. Naples now, east winds gusting to 24. Pagefield gusting to 25, so occasionally you're getting some gusts over 20 miles per hour, but generally we're handling this just fine right now.
Yeah, that's the saving grace, because usually with these tropical systems, they're larger than tropical storm force winds being out only 70 miles. Usually we're talking, at one time this storm had tropical storm force winds out 140 miles.
Right.
And the wind field gradually started shrinking as it was approaching Cuba, and it really didn't I was thinking if it did undergo some pretty decent weakening over Cuba, that the wind field, when these storms weaken, sometimes they will unravel like a coil, like unraveling a coil or a spring. They'll tend to, the wind field will spread out a bit. We did not see that happen. The wind field stayed at about 70 miles from the center, so that's actually helping us out a lot. Even though it's making a close approach to the southwest Florida coast, the stronger winds with the smaller wind field is actually staying just offshore. And you're going to see those stronger wind gusts, because what happens is that you start to see those stronger winds that are in the upper atmosphere get pulled down to the ground because of some of those thunderstorms. The winds, at least the air currents inside these little bands go up and down, and when the ones down actually start pulling down some of that stronger wind from aloft. And so with these rain bands, as they move through, that's where you'll see those stronger winds. But this gives you a really good idea of what to expect with the wind field. And again, as we go throughout the evening hours, we do expect the winds at the coast to strengthen a little bit more. But right now, it does not look like we're going to be seeing the strongest of the winds, even though it's expected to strengthen to a Category 1 hurricane. That should stay just off to our west, out into the Gulf, and then eventually head up into Sarasota, Manatee, Hillsborough County, and up into Pinellas County here later on this evening. So basically the Tampa Bay area will get the brunt of this. Patrick, I don't know if Patrick is ready. Patrick, I know you're in the newsroom. You're standing by with some more information. Patrick, tell us what you got.
It's always hard to know when I'm ready, but I'm definitely
I was just checking. I never know with you.
Yeah, it's a tough face to read.
I know, right?
I do want to update folks on something that's probably going to affect you the most. First of all, there's a reason why Hot Bench isn't on. I know you're turning into Fox 4 and you're like, wait a second, I want to watch Hot Bench, then I want Judge Judy to come. And we jumped on the air because we had some concerns about tornadoes. That's our commitment to you. So we just want to explain why we're here if you're just tuning in for the first part of this. The other thing we want to let you know, probably the biggest thing affecting the most people in Southwest Florida, is that the chairman of the Lee County Commission and also the Lee County manager, and you saw it here live if you're watching about 20-30 minutes ago, got on and said, listen, we don't see this as a huge storm. We don't see this as necessarily a dangerous or destructive storm, but we also didn't expect that it could be flirting with the possibility of being a Cat 1 storm. So with that in mind, out of an abundance of caution, and I know that's cliche and you hear it all the time, but having learned lessons, and they said this themselves, from Irma and Ada and some other storms where they give out the word, I don't want to say at the last minute, but closer to when you might feel the impacts, and then they feel like there's a scramble. They got way out ahead of this and made some decisions that you may in retrospect go, was it really necessary? And of course they want to err on that side. So here's the big thing. If you're a Lee County employee, they let you off the clock as of 2 o'clock. So if you're in some outpost for Lee County right now and you're watching us on TV on your laptop and you're like, wait a second, he just told me I can go home. That's possible. If you're considered a critical employee for Lee County, obviously they want you to stay on, and this is going to have to do with a lot of different departments that have to do with stormwater drainage, even trash pickup. They say it's just going to be delayed because of the holiday this week, not because of this storm. And the other thing that Shari mentioned earlier is that if you rely on Lee-Tran to get to or from work or maybe to your medical provider or home, the buses are going to stop running in less than 2 hours. In just about an hour and a half, they're going to stop running those buses at 5 o'clock, just as our 5 o'clock news starts. So just wanted to let you know all that information. And there's one more thing. You know that Lee County runs some summer camps and day camps and things like that. Don't want you to go into a panic. Those are the employees who are not allowed to go home at 2 o'clock. They got to keep watching your kids, and county officials made that very clear. So they are going to keep those camps in place so that if you normally pick them up when you're done with work, you'll be able to pick them up at your regular time. The other thing the chairman of the county commission asked for, Kevin Ruane, was that if you are at home and you don't don't need to be out on the roads, it's probably going to make it easier for everyone. Again, your car's probably not going to get blown off. There's not going to be a cow upside down like the movie Twister. But that said, they just don't see any unnecessary risk that you should take, and then maybe put their first responders in a riskier position, having to respond to maybe your fender bender, or you made a bonehead decision and tried to drive through some water. So that's the big word from Lee County. They did declare a state of emergency, and sometimes you might even get like sort of state of emergency fatigue this time of year, because we've seen it from everything from the collapse to now what looks like, you know, some strong rain, but nothing that we're not used to here in Southwest Florida. They made that decision so that if they need a contractor at the last minute, let's say the storm drainage area in your neighborhood backs up, they don't want to have to go through every requisition form and all the red tape and the bureaucratic process, which is of course in place to protect your tax dollars. They don't want to have to go through all those steps to get a contractor lickety split on something. So the state of emergency allows the county to make those decisions with your tax dollars to make sure they're responding appropriately and in real time. There are some other things that go along with it. You know, there's a little more power that's put into the county in terms of policing and making sure people had to stay off the roads if that were an order, but that's not the case. It's just a really strong suggestion and request at this point. We know that you have plenty of questions as well, specifically about the weather and how it's going to affect the rest of your afternoon. And Shari Armstrong standing by maybe with more on that. Shars, you got a few questions for us?
Yeah, Patrick. So I love keeping an eye on the Facebook comments because it's just our way of being able to interact with so many of you. And we're glad you trust us, and we are honored that you trust us to keep you up to date with the latest during hurricane season and, of course, news all around. But yes, this question is for the Weather Center, Derek Beasley and Cindy Presler, and they're asking about storm surge. Essentially, will we receive some type of warning when it comes to storm surge? And I thought that was interesting because we talk about storm surge a lot and its impact. Is there a heads up when it could possibly impact your area?
Well, typically, whenever we start to see the storm surge impacting the area, Cindy, it's usually when the storm is making its approach towards the coast. So it looks like if we're going to see the highest storm surge here, especially to the right of the track, let's say the track does actually hold true here, and by late tonight, we're going to be looking at everything on the immediate right side where we could be looking at that 1 to 3 foot storm surge. The potential is there up to 4, but right now it looks like the lowest, the storm surge is mainly going to be just off to our south. Let's go back over to source 1 quickly so I can kind of show you what we're looking at here with the track of the storm and where we could see that highest storm surge. Again, it's going to be just immediately to the right, so that would include coastal Lee County, coastal portions of Charlotte County, and up into Sarasota County. And then if we start to see more of a track bending a little bit more towards the east, and of course that would put more of Lee County in play. But I think really at the most, that's what we're going to be looking at with this particular system. One of the saving graces from this is there are so many different factors that determine how high the storm surge is. Of course, a lot of folks, used to try to use the category of the storm to determine the size of the storm surge. Well, it goes a lot deeper than that. You also have to look at the way the slope of the seafloor goes all the way out for the beach, all the way out into the Gulf or the area of water. So, like for instance, the up towards the Big Bend, they're very storm surge prone for a number of reasons, based on something that we call bathymetry, or the way the way it slopes down from the beaches all the way down into the Gulf. But you're also looking at the concavity of the coastline up in that part of the state of Florida. You can see up here how, it kind of has that shape that's concave, and so you get all that water piling in there. They're very highly storm surge prone. But usually with these storms, you look at the size. The size also makes a big difference. A good example of that was Hurricane Katrina. It was a very large storm. Even though it dropped down to a Cat 3, it still had the momentum of a Cat 5, and it was also a very large storm. So it produced that huge storm surge over 20 to 25 feet across parts of the Mississippi Gulf Coast. With this particular situation, we're not looking at a terribly strong storm. It's also a small one. So we're going to be looking at a very concentrated area that's going to be seeing that highest storm surge, and that's going to be mainly immediately to the right. So that would include Sarasota County, based on the trajectory as it moves towards the coast, and also into portions of Charlotte County. So right now we're looking perhaps at the most With this particular track, we're looking at upwards of about maybe 2 to 3 feet in some areas at the most. Now, Cindy, you were talking about last night with the cycles of high and low tide. We were looking at the high tide cycle, of course. I believe in some areas came at about 10 o'clock this morning, especially in Lee County. And we've had pretty much an offshore flow. But it looks like as we go into later on tonight, and I don't know if you've got a chance to take a look at when exactly the high tide times are as we go into later on tonight. That's one thing that we can look at here for later on tonight is when the high tide times will be for portions of Charlotte County and into Sarasota County later on tonight. And then we kind of time it out because that you have the storm surge and then you also add on the change of the tides too. You get the tidal surge adding on to that, and also of course you've got winds that are going to be adding on to the top of that. So we don't expect significant storm surge, but there will be some water rise here at the coast as it approaches later on this evening.
All right, Derek, and remember, if you have any questions, you can go to our Facebook page, you can send us an email, you can call us. It'll go to our voicemail, but we'll check it. However, we just want you to know that we are here to serve you, and if you have any questions when it comes to Tropical Storm Elsa, we're working to get you some answers as you just saw. Now, guys, I want to pull up that map right now that, yes, the westbound traffic on Golden Gate Parkway at Coronado Parkway has been reduced. Just a heads up, in the westbound right turn lane on Golden Gate Parkway, we're kind of showing you a map to give you some perspective here. It is closed due to a stormwater pipe break under the roadway there. Now, drivers who need to turn right, you can do so from the through lane there. We want you to know that repairs are in the process of being scheduled in that area right now. And of course, we know that one of the major things that you're keeping track of when it comes to the storm includes closures. So I want to make sure that I pull this information up for you and we keep you updated when it comes to schools, camps, and colleges in our area. DeSoto County Schools says they will be open tomorrow. Lee County Schools says they will be making a decision within the next 3 hours. Collier County Schools are waiting to hear from them, and the same with Charlotte County Schools as well. And if you're wondering, maybe you don't have a kid in school or kids in school, you're wondering, why are we talking about schools during the summer? Well, this is in reference to summer school. So summer school sessions are still going on, and we want to make sure that families are informed when it comes to closure. So we will let you know when we hear from Lee, Collier, and Charlotte counties as well. Also an update here, just to make it pretty straightforward for you. Lee, Charlotte, Collier, DeSoto County Schools all closed currently. Charlotte County, City of Northport summer camps have been canceled, and then Rasmussen University, their Fort Myers campus, their Tampa and Brandon campuses, and then the Central Pasco campuses all closed right now. And then Florida Southwestern, we've heard from them. They say right now they are only offering remote classes. So any updates in regards to schools, camps, and colleges, you can trust us to bring you the latest information on that. Also, we are taking a look at how Tropical Storm Elsa could impact your flight plans. So take a look at your screen. This is a look from the big board at RSW right now. Now, the most important thing here is to take a look at the right-hand side of your screen, right? Finding your airline and then looking to see what's the status of your plane. And this is something that looks a little different from when we started on air this morning, or when I started on air this morning at 11 a.m. You can see a lot more canceled flights, a lot more delayed flights here on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, earlier today, we saw a lot more on time, but of course, with weather conditions and a forecast possible Category 1 hurricane, that changes things. So if you are planning on flying in or out of RSW, you want to make sure, and the airlines have been telling us, that you download their app, you check your flight status on their website, because this could change as we've seen throughout the day here, and we are keeping track of Tropical Storm Elsa both on air and online. So if you're looking for a link to this, you can go to our website. That's fox4now.com/hurricane, I believe. And I also want to make sure, guys, is it possible that we can pull up our website on live web right here, just so, oh, you see me scratching my face. I'm a real person. But can we just pull up and let people know you can go to fox4now.com? Our director's laughing at me like I'm not a real person. I'm real. But you can head to fox4now.com for all the latest information, just because we know it's a lot. we actually have a section there that actually outlines closures. So if you're watching and you're like, wait, is Collier County schools, are they open? Is Lee County schools open? Don't worry, we've got you covered on our website. So just go to fox4now.com, and right here you can see we've got the latest information for you. And on the right-hand side there, it says download the Fox 4 app. That is a great way for you to stay up to date and get notifications when it comes to the storms and closures and any way that Tropical Storm Elsa is impacting our weather, whether it's your commute, your travel plans, school closures, camps, etc. We are keeping the conversation going on Facebook. We've been live throughout the last 24 hours. Our crews, Colton Chavez, Rachel Lloyd, Rochelle Aline, working to bring you the latest both on air and online, like we always say. And so we've been live on Facebook, and from our live reports, including a report from Jessica Alpern, we're keeping track of your comments. So just because your comment is there and it wasn't answered immediately, it doesn't mean that we're not seeing it. So I am taking a look at your comments right now and then delivering those comments to our meteorologists who are on standby, ready to answer. And guys in the Weather Center, one question is wind in regards to stuff on your patio. If you have things out on the patio right now, should you be bringing those things in right now? When it comes to wind, what are we talking about and what should we expect?
Especially near the coast, Shari, and that's really going to be the area that has the strongest winds this evening when the storm makes its closest approach to the coast. Now, if you're inland, really, to be honest with you, like, if you have anything like loose lawn furniture, things like things that just loose things outside that could get blown around, it's not a bad idea to get that, bring it in and secure it. But I do
trash cans, flags,
that type of thing.
Yes, cushions, patio cushions. If you have one of those lanais where you have a Kevlar curtain you can bring down, bring those underneath. It's just a good idea. Get them out of the wind and the rain too. But again, I don't think we're going to see the major impacts from this. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't expect like major wind here, but you know, if you get gusts 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, which we're expecting later tonight when the storm gets a little bit closer, that's not a bad idea to go ahead and bring that stuff in. But we're not expecting apocalyptic winds here. I do want to stress that. So just to be safe, you can do that. If you're like in LaBelle or if you're out in Immokalee, I really don't think you're going to have to worry about that. We see stronger storms during, we see stronger winds during a regular afternoon thunderstorm sometime. But really the areas that are going to be most impacted will be these areas up basically from coastal Lee County. So I'd say really Pine Island, Boca Grande, northward through the Cape Hayes Peninsula and parts of Sarasota County, because those areas, based on the way the Florida's coastline is shaped and the way the storm is coming in, the way the wind field is going to spread across the state, or at least across the coast later tonight, those are the areas that are going to be closest to the center that will have the best chance for seeing some of those stronger winds here later on tonight. But if you get farther inland, the winds aren't going to be quite as bad, and we're going to be looking at mainly gusts with a lot of these winds here later on this evening. Now, we'd be looking at a whole different story if the storm were turning more into southwest Florida, like a situation like Charlie, for instance. Then the whole core would be moving over southwest Florida. Then we would be looking at sustained winds 60, 70 miles an hour, and it'd be more of a serious situation. But in this particular case, with the storm staying just offshore, with its small size and the area that it's going to be moving towards the coast and the angle, the strongest winds are going to be kind of in the, if you were to take southwest Florida and start from Sarasota County down to Collier County, it's that northwest corner, which would include, again, coastal Lee, coastal Charlotte, and also parts of Sarasota County with those stronger winds.
Take a peek at radar, Derek. Look at this. It looks like our rain is definitely backing off a little bit. You're not getting a lot of the reds in there like we had earlier. Of course, the stronger, the heavier rain is definitely out in the Gulf of Mexico, but I'm not seeing a lot of real tall thunderstorms out there, maybe up to about 20,000 feet.
Well, one of the things that, and typically with these tropical systems, they're going to be low-topped anyway. So, but one of the things that we're going to be watching for, and this actually could be a sign that possibly the tornado threat could increase a bit, because you're starting to get these holes down here where you're not seeing a lot of rainfall, let's say down into parts of inland Collier County. If we go over to source 1, that would be where you could see. And you see that we're not really seeing a whole lot down towards inland Collier, so really east of State Highway 29. Down towards Monroe County into Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and you're starting to get these breaks. And so what happens when that occurs is that you start getting these breaks in between the line, and you can get little pockets of instability, if you will. When the rain is occurring, it's kind of cooling the atmosphere down, and we are starting to see basically kind of things stabilize. That's why You're not seeing much in the way of tornado warnings right now because you see most of southwest Florida now is encompassed by this large rain shield, which has basically capped the instability. It's cloudy, it's cool, it's wet. And tornadoes tend to like things a little bit more warm, more humid. So what's going to be interesting are these bands coming off of the coast here over to Miami-Dade County. As they rotate westward, we will see if those try to spin up and take advantage of the break in the rainfall. Also, we're starting to see some of these bands here down towards the south. They don't look quite as healthy as they did earlier, but sometimes you can get some more redevelopment as you go throughout the evening hours, especially if you do happen to see more of those breaks and the atmosphere has a chance to destabilize. But there's the circulation just offshore. You can see it's kind of moving, looks like, in that northerly direction. So that was the last movement north at about 9 miles per hour, and there it is right there. So it's going to be kind of moving in this general direction. And if you were kind of go from the center and go outwards, and keep in mind that the low-level center is kind of offset. So what we're probably looking at here is more of the mid-level center than the low-level center, just because the storm is tilted due to the upper-level shear. But if you were to kind of move out this way, let's say to Marco Island, we're looking at about 70 miles. And if we were to kind of erase this and go a little bit farther towards the north, you could see that if the storm, once it gets just due west of Lee County, let's see, we're going to go this way here. We're looking at roughly, I'd say, it looks like it's going to be more of like about 50, 60 miles. So that's why, notice how the distance, of course, is a lot shorter the farther north you get. So as this storm starts approaching the coast later on tonight, with the wind field extending out 70 miles, notice that the center, if it continues to that due north track, when it's due west of Captiva, it's only going to be about 50 miles offshore, which if it's a 70-mile wide, at least diameter, radius, I should say, from the center, tropical storm force wind field, part of Lee County is going to be under those tropical storm force winds. So even inland counties now, or inland portions of Lee County, are now under that tropical storm warning, as well as Charlotte County.
We've got a report actually from Rob Manch is out at Fort Myers Beach. And Rob, I know it's raining there, so what else are you seeing?
Looks like
Can you
Rob.
hear me now,
there we
guys?
go,
Yeah,
Rob. There we go.
We're keeping the mic. Yeah. We're trying to save the battery. Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Rob, what are you seeing? I know it's raining, but are you getting much wind?
Okay, now you can hear me. All right, so the rain is coming down pretty hard here. We're actually on the end of the Fort Myers Beach Pier, and the winds out here are very high compared to back on the beach. But we wanted to show you a little bit of the waves as you're rolling in. This gives you a pretty good perspective. We're getting much higher waves than we usually do here on Fort Myers Beach. I was just down here for the 4th of July, and I can tell you the ocean didn't look like that. But one of the interesting phenomenons we're seeing here is you can see the wet beach. The tide has actually pulled way out from the beach here. It's kind of an interesting thing going on. I don't know if that's related to the storm, but I assume our meteorologists might have some insight into why that's happening. But like I said, throughout the day, we've just been seeing a lot of rain, a lot of higher winds, and then, of course, that kick up of the waves there. And so far, all of the businesses down here on Times Square in downtown Fort Myers Beach have closed their doors. We did speak with the Lani Kai Hotel. They are open and have their bars and restaurants open, but that's one of the only places you can go right now in Fort Myers Beach. But that hasn't stopped people who are staying here for the holiday week from coming out on the beach. We spoke to a few of them earlier, and they tell us they're making the best of it, and they're sticking it out through the storm. So I'd like to throw it back to you guys. So Cindy, Derek, maybe you can explain a little bit of this phenomenon, like I said, about this the ocean kind of pulling out here from the beach, and if that's related to the storm at all.
Well, you're right, Rob. I mean, because with that easterly wind that's helping, and I believe we got to look and see when high tide actually occurred at Fort Myers Beach, and I know it looks like it occurred just a little bit after 1 o'clock. So the tide started to go out, but we have an easterly wind. What, about 25 miles?
25 mile per hour gusts.
Yes, we have an easterly wind at 25, and that's actually helping to pull that water out. And we've seen this before. We saw this, I believe, with Irma. Where we did see the winds coming from an easterly direction for a prolonged period of time. It tends to pull that water out. When the winds shift onshore later tonight, we're going to start to see that water come back, and then that's what we could be looking at kind of more of an issue with perhaps some more water rise and some coastal flooding. It shouldn't get too bad, but that's the way it looks right now. Just kind of give you an idea of, again, with the wind field, and I want to show this to you again. It does look like, again, with its closest approach to the coast, later on tonight, we'll go to source 1. I can kind of show you where the tropical storm force wind field will be. When it gets up to areas just due west of Pine Island and Captiva, Boca Grande, we're going to be looking at that wind field basically spreading on shore. So that would include coastal Collier County. So it's going to be mainly the coastal areas, but I still think that the strongest winds are going to be kind of in that northwest section, kind of closer to where you see those orange colors. So that would be for Englewood, into Rotunda, Minnesota Key, and places like that. That's where we could see some of those stronger winds getting up into the high-end tropical storm range. So again, really, the biggest threats here over the next several hours will be the heavy rainfall. We've already seen several inches of rain so far, and we're going to continue to see that rain across our area here as we go into later on tonight. But again, the tornado watch remains in effect here until 11 o'clock, and we have that tropical storm warning in effect as well. Cindy, you've got more on that.
Yeah, that tropical storm warning is going to continue on for the rest of this evening, and it's right along the coastal areas that are particularly vulnerable because of all these waves that continue to come in. So we're going to watch that wind. Gusts 25, 35. There could be some gusts maybe up to 50 miles per hour with these thunderstorms, with these bands of rain that are coming in, and that storm surge warning. We talk about this over and over, generally 1 to 3, and again, because of the angle of this wind that's coming in from the south, so places like Pine Island Sound, Port Charlotte, that area, and again, right along the coast here, along Lee County, Fort Myers Beach, where Rob is, we're getting those winds and those waves. So that's the places you really want to use some caution and keep an eye on it. Flood watch will continue. This is going to be through tonight into tomorrow. And it's really because of the rain that's been falling on saturated ground. We've had so much. And, of course, the tornado watch remains in effect. And this is going to be for the entire southern half of Florida. Of course, it does include southwest Florida. So as Elsa moves away, our rain chances will decrease. So we're going to stick with, at 8 o'clock tonight, 100% chance. Still getting the effects. It should be just to the northwest of the Cape Coral area, of the Fort Myers area, off into the Gulf. And as we move into about midnight, now we're going to drop down to about 70% chance. We still have the higher gusts now making their way off to the north. Tomorrow morning, things looking much better, about a 50% chance to noon. So we're still not going to see dry conditions. We'll still get some residual showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, but everything that wraps around the core of Elsa will be racing away. And somewhere, it looks like around north of Tampa, it looks like this will make its way inland, and that's going to be the strongest winds, but it's a very tight core. So right there, if we have 75-mile-per-hour winds, that will be a minimum hurricane, a weak hurricane, Cat 1. There could be some wind damage around that, but conditions will be much better for us. So our rain chances come down, 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 going into Wednesday. Thursday, we're back down to normal conditions, and that's where we could see showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening again, heading through the week. Just very typical summertime weather. So still things to watch for here. Locally heavy rainfall. We've already seen as much as 3 inches around Marco Island. Could see 6 inches out of this yet. Locally anyway, flooding of low-lying areas. Many of you have those spots, driveways. We've got parking lots. Our parking lot back here floods quite easily. The roads flood very easily, so you've got to watch those conditions. Tropical storm force wind gusts, funnel clouds, and tornadoes. We've had, I think, this morning 3 tornado warnings in the viewing area. We had one that was actually cited as a funnel cloud, so that's possible. Anytime you have any kind of a tropical system out in the Gulf or a hurricane, you have the possibility of tornadoes because there's just a natural spin to the environment. We've got lots of moisture, we've got instability. You get that natural spin, there you go. You got a small, brief tornado. EF0 or EF1 is probably as strong as they get. You got to stay alert with these systems. Derek, you want to add a little bit more onto this?
Yeah, those are really, again, the threats that we'll be looking here for later on tonight. I was kind of getting an idea. Of course, we still have that aerial flood advisory for Collier County until 6:15. That's, again, not surprising considering all the rainfall totals that we've seen so far, exceeding 4 inches in many locations. As Cindy just mentioned, we are going to be seeing more. Again, the hurricane, the storm Elsa potentially becoming a Category 1 hurricane. We're going to be getting the 5 o'clock advisory here in about an hour or so. It looks like a little bit after that, but that wind is still holding at 70 miles per hour. So it came up a little bit after weakening over Cuba and then kind of maintaining its strength, then strengthening last night. And now those winds now at about 70 miles per hour, the pressure down to 1,001 millibars. Again, a closer look at the track on that due northward movement. The center will stay offshore. But with the wind field being the way it's shaped and the angle that the storm is approaching the coast, we will see a portion of the tropical storm force wind field graze portions of southwest Florida, and that will be later on this evening into early tonight before the threat then starts moving up towards the Tampa Bay area and then up towards the Nature Coast late tonight and into the early morning hours on your Wednesday. This thing will be out of our hair by as early as after midnight tonight and tomorrow morning. So really kind of the worst of it here will be over the next few hours. And really, to be honest with you, it hasn't been terrible so far. It hasn't been that bad, and we really weren't expecting it to. But even though that this Hurricane Center is expecting this thing to intensify, we do think that the strongest winds are going to be staying just offshore. One thing I am noticing, too, within the last few frames of the radar, and that's kind of one of the things we do when we're covering these tropical cyclones and these tropical storms and hurricanes, is kind of we look at radar and see exactly what's going on. I'm noticing a few lightning strikes out there. These lightning strikes are indicative of a storm that is trying to get better organized, so we could be looking at some strengthening here. It will be interesting to see, though, exactly what is going on with the storm as it moves to the north. But we could be looking at the process strengthening, where you've seen some lightning strikes here near the center of circulation. But you can see that the heavy rain bands continue. They extend through Collier County, so it's kind of a mess. As a matter of fact, if we can go to one of the FDOT cams, I believe we have one down at exit 101. Let me know exactly where this is. It is 111. Okay, so this would be Immokalee Road. And you can see that that's kind of what you're going to be dealing with on I-75, just kind of a slow, wet commute and a lot of semi-spray out there, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to navigate. Fortunately, though, as I was making my way into work, I had to go the same route, and the traffic was moving gingerly, wasn't moving overly quickly like I typically see on 75. So folks were taking heed of the conditions and just kind of taking their time making their way north and south on I-75. So that's right around Immokalee Road there, and that's kind of the scene across our area. That's where some of the heaviest rain is now. That does extend up into portions of Lee County. You can see some of the yellow colors there showing those steadier downpours that are now starting to move into the Cape and into Lehigh Acres. But if you're going to see the stronger wind gusts, it's going to be in some of these darker bands. If we can go over to source 1, you can see that when those bands there where you see the darker red colors occasionally showing up, that's where you'll see some of those stronger wind gusts that are going to be approaching the tropical storm range. Unfortunately, we haven't seen things get too out of hand over the last several hours. We had a couple of reports of some tropical storm wind gusts, particularly down at Marco Island earlier. The heaviest rainfall rates with that band now moving through Collier County. This is coming up on the Lely area. Golden Gate, you guys are next. Some of these rainfall rates here getting upwards of, looks like I'd say between about 2 and 3 inches per hour. And yeah, it looks like they're about 2 inches per hour. So not quite as heavy as what we were dealing with earlier, but they've been kind of coming up and down as these bands start rotating onshore. So again, we still have that tropical storm warning that remains in effect for the coastal areas. It was expanded inland to include inland portions of Charlotte and Lee counties. This goes until further notice. It looks like the winds, though, will start decreasing below the potential for tropical storm force later on tonight and early Wednesday morning as the center of circulation is going to be moving away from the area. So again, as far as additional rainfall totals across our area, it's not out of the question, particularly near the coast, that we can see an additional 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. This is going to go through. We'll take this through Wednesday afternoon, and you can see that, again, the heaviest rain totals are going to be right where the core is going to be moving onshore, so down into the Inglewood area for Punta Gorda and Port Charlotte, and even including the Cape and Pine Islands, so Bokeelia, Sanibel, Captiva, an additional maybe 2 to 4 inches of rainfall will be possible through Wednesday as this moves on through. Cindy, you got some more information?
Yeah, let's go back to weather too. And we got some storm reports here now. There hasn't been much. Thankfully, we have not had a lot of storm reports, but 1 mile west-southwest of Fiddler's Creek, this is in Collier County, a 42-mile-per-hour gust there. And you go north to Sarasota County, 1 mile west-northwest of Sarasota, 48-mile-per-hour gust, and 1 mile south of Marco Island, and considering Marco is the closest now to the core of Elsa, 47-mile-per-hour gust. We're getting some more of these heavier rain bands now that are starting to make their way again through Marco Island. Marco has had so much rain, over 3 inches. Naples now getting a heavier band that is moving through there. I'm going to even stop this and see if I can get a reading on this, but we got some rainfall rates that are pretty heavy here, 1 1/3 inches per hour. So that's some pretty hefty rain that continues to fall through this area, and that's just coming in with these bands that continue to wrap around the core of Elsa. The yellows and the oranges, of course, are the heavier rain. So it's the coastal areas of Collier, Lee County, Bonita Springs, a pretty good band coming your direction as well, and then eventually up into Fort Myers. So it's all the coastal areas, Sanibel, Cape Coral. We've had a steady rain here today in Cape Coral. That's pretty much what is falling right now. If I pull this out, you go further east and it's a lighter rain as well. But down here, as Derek was talking about, with all this area down here that has not had a lot of rain, like right down here, southeastern Florida, the Homestead area down to Key Largo, these areas could help enhance the development of some stronger storms. There's a band that's moving in now from the Atlantic, coming back into the Miami area. There was quite a bit of lightning with this line back out into the Bahamas. There are a couple of storms here that do contain some lightning, and this would be the area that you would expect to see possibly some tornado development with these little individual cells. Did you see that lightning, how it just kind of died off as it made its way over toward just south of Fort Lauderdale? This is the line. Look at the lightning, and then all of a sudden it dies off. So it's kind of feeding off of that warm water out in the Atlantic with water temperatures in the lower to mid 80s. So that's some really warm water, and then it gets closer to land and then it dies off. So that's interesting that it continues to do that. But these little feeder bands are sitting way out here in the Atlantic, way away from the core. How far do you think that is from the core of Elsa? Let's put a measurement on some of these bands. That's 169, 170 miles east of the core of Elsa, and that's how large the influence is with these bands that continue to wrap around. So it's not a small area, even though the core is really tiny. You've got this rain shield going all the way north, and then all the way down, still Key West is still picking up some rain out of this too. So it's a large area that's being influenced by this, even though that core is really tiny, just a teeny tiny little tight core. And Derek, you've got the visible satellite that gives us a good view of that.
Well, Cindy, I was just looking at this because it kind of gives you a good idea of what the structure of the storm is. And, you know, I saw this happen with now I'm not saying this is going to turn into a Michael situation, but with Michael it was highly sheared, but it still ended up intensifying nonetheless. And this one's trying to intensify despite the fact that it's dealing with a fairly hostile environment. The low-level circulation is displaced from the mid-level portions of the storm, so it's tilted. And that's why we're not expecting rapid strengthening with this as it approaches the Florida coast later tonight and early Wednesday. But it is sheared, and that is kind of keeping it in check, despite the fact that water temps here are running out into the low to mid 80s. Now, as Cindy was talking about, she was noticing that there are some breaks occurring in the clouds down into Monroe and Miami-Dade County. And we still have a tornado threat. Until this thing lifts well north of our area, we're still going to have a tornado threat through the evening. And if we get any breaks in the clouds through sunset, that's going to destabilize the atmosphere and set up portions of inland Collier County down into Miami-Dade, Broward, and Monroe County for any storms down there to rotate up our way and potentially rotate. Another quick look at the winds here for this evening, and I know a lot of folks have been talking about exactly how strong the winds are going to get. In a lot of situations, a lot of us that have been around here for a while, we've been through this a million times before. This is nothing new at all. But if this is kind of something new for you, if you're kind of new to the area, you're not used to getting these tropical systems, it's certainly nothing to be concerned about, nothing to be worried about. But we just want to give you an idea of what to expect. And those wind gusts, especially to the north and west of Fort Myers and the Cape, will be the highest based on where the storm is going to be heading here later tonight. But the American GFS model gets a pretty good idea of what to expect throughout the evening. This is kind of what we've seen through the afternoon. Very close to the coast, we've seen some of those gusts over 40, high 30s. Everywhere else, they've been into the 20 range. But then as we go through the evening hours, the storm makes its closest approach as it gets up towards areas around Sarasota and Tampa. That's where some of the stronger winds are going to be, up into portions of Sarasota County. But again, those winds should begin coming down here as we go into later on tonight. So again, we wanted to send it over to Shari and Jane over at the news desk. You got some more information on something, right?
Yeah, Derek, we're just following some of the closures. Hi, everyone. Just after 4 o'clock as we continue to follow Tropical Storm on its way to potentially being a hurricane. Jane Monreal with Shari Armstrong. Patrick Nolan also here in the newsroom. And Derek, was talking about, we've been here, you're from Florida, I'm from the East Coast, Broward County. We've seen our share of tropical storms, depressions, and hurricanes. And this is one of those lines that you ride between, you don't want to take it for granted, but you don't want to be, worried like crazy, right?
I agree. I mean, and I say this all the time, like when you're Floridian and you hear tropical storm, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna stay home and, paint my nails, and it's a day off, but this is a reminder of how important it is to still pay attention, because all day we mentioned prior to that tornado warning that this is a tropical storm and we can expect, rain and heavy rain and wind and whatnot. But now we're talking about a tornado warning that has expired, but it is a reality check for all of us, especially those of us who are kind of tone deaf when it comes to hurricane season. And there are a lot of us. I mean, I'm confessing for the Floridians right here.
So true. Yeah, it was some anxious moments. Kevin Ruane, the chair of the emergency management group for Lee County, said, they're prepared to adjust to anything. People are still out on the roads. I did learn that Publix, Home Depot, they're still open, keeping regular hours.
Because you need a pub sub during hurricane season, I'm telling you.
But again, as we really start the wet season, the hurricane season, it's one of those things where, if this isn't a warning or a rehearsal for you, then you might want to just make sure that for all intents and purposes, it is something to be wary.
Agreed. And just an update for you, we are staying on top of closures in our area. So, Jane, I know you had one for Collier County Transportation Services out there.
Yes, so they will be shutting down 5 o'clock.
Right.
As Lee Trent is, right?
Exactly. So just again, Collier County and then Lee Trent here in Lee County will not be running after 5 o'clock. County officials in Lee County did say that Lee Trent is still active right now. So if you need to get somewhere, just make sure you have a ride after, because they'll be closing those services at 5. And then we also want to let you know as well that the city of Fort Myers has closed its offices and facilities as well. Granted, those offices normally close around 5, but if you were planning on scooting in there before then, just a heads up that they will be closed.
Well, let's get to this map right now, showing you some traffic on this map. Westbound on Golden Gate Parkway at Coronado Parkway, it's been taken down, been reduced. The westbound right turn lane on Golden Gate closed due to a storm water pipe break right underneath. So just to give you a sense of what's around there, drivers who need to make that right turn, you can do so from the through lane, that middle lane, and repairs are in the process of being scheduled.
And Jane, Fox 4's Rochelle Aline sending us this video. Take a look. It's from Lashley Park in Punta Gorda. Crews removing furniture from the area in preparation for those gusty winds that Cindy and Derek and the team have been talking about. Of course, anything not fixed down can be a missile, even in tropical storm force winds. So again, reminder, if you have like any patio furniture or anything outside, it might not hurt to just secure it.
I spent all last night, well, not all last night, not that I have like a full balcony full of furniture.
At your mansion, we get it, Jane.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time taking everything in.
Now, just a heads up for all of you people in Charlotte County, specifically in Englewood, the Tom Adams Bridge has been shut down today. This closure is specifically for marine traffic, so boats are allowed to pass through using that drawbridge there. The Coast Guard actually made that call when they activated Condition Zulu. That call from the Coast Guard has also closed the ports in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Manatee County, and in Fort Myers as well. And right now in Bonita Springs, Station 4 Fire Department says it is out of sandbags. We know this is something a lot of you have been looking for and asking, so we want to let you know people have been getting sandbags in preparation for Tropical Storm Elsa. They know that. That's why they're posting this update for you. Now, if you still need sandbags, you're asked to just check with other fire departments in the area.
We're keeping up with the storm as the outer rain bands, as Cindy and Derek have been showing you, they're making their way to southwest Florida's coast. Barrier Islands like Sanibel and Captiva tend to flood. If you've been with us year after year, you know, during hurricane season, we've seen some of the cottages there really take a beating, especially with Ada. I recall some of those hotels there right on the beach took a lot of flooding. Fox 4's Rachel Lloyd on Captiva today, where they're seeing some rain.
There is some light rain here on Captiva Island. You can see there are a few waves crashing on the water, and there's quite a few people out here right now. I talked to some folks who are looking to surf before the storm rolls in. There was actually one guy who was out here fishing, trying to get ahead of the game. They're just trying to have as much fun as they possibly can before Tropical Storm Elsa gets here. But they did say that they'll follow direction from local leaders. If they need to go home, hunker down, they're prepared to do that. Now, coming up on Fox 4 News at 5 and 6, hear from the Public Works Director over in Sanibel about what he's telling visitors and residents to do for Tropical Storm Elsa. In Captiva, Rachel Lloyd, Fox 4.
Thank you, Rachel. And Collier Area Transit, like I've said, or CAT service has been suspended. This is due to winds now picking up past their danger threshold of 35 miles an hour. So as a reminder, most county school classes, colleges, camps, and services, they've been suspended for today. They would have been closed by now anyway. Florida Southwestern only holding online classes later this evening. We have been keeping watch for announcements for the county school systems regarding their plans for tomorrow's class because of summer school, as well as some camp schedules. So far, you can see on your screen, DeSoto is a go. Charlotte County schools, they're going to open tomorrow as usual. Collier County School District just notified us that they will be open tomorrow as well. That's the official word from the Collier County School District. The Lee County School District is waiting until 6 o'clock to make their announcement. So we will keep you updated here in a couple of hours.
And just a reminder, as Southwest Florida begins to feel the impact of Tropical Storm Elsa, you want to make sure you've signed up for emergency alerts with the county that you live in. Charlotte, Collier, and Lee counties all participate in this alert program, and you can sign up for their alerts. Just go to your county's website. And don't forget, you can stay up to date on Tropical Storm Elsa 24 hours a day when you head to fox4now.com/hurricane, or you download the Fox 4 app as well.
A lot of good information there. The Keys, they were the first part of Florida to get hit. They got a first taste of what we are experiencing now. Kevin Ozebek reports from Key West on what they saw.
Tropical Storm Elsa did not make landfall in the Keys, but she sure did soak Key West.
This is by far our worst weather this summer.
For hours, the city saw consistent rain. At times, there were pockets of heavy downpours.
Wet and windy, very, very wet and windy. Wasn't expecting this.
On Duval Street and elsewhere in the city, there were pockets of flooding. Wind gusts were clocked at around 45 miles an hour, and those winds made for choppy water.
As Elsa skirted along to the west of Key West, she really did roughen up the surf. We saw waves 2 to 3 feet tall.
Describe the surf. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's pretty wild out there.
But in typical Key West fashion, even during the severe weather, shops were open, people went out for a walk. In a city where there are more tourists than locals, the tropical weather became the tourist attraction.
We've had a blast driving around, seeing all the waves.
Now here in the Keys, the hope is the worst of the weather is over.
It seems like the sky's getting a little bit lighter than it was earlier.
Well, with the chance of strong winds and storm surge, local officials reminding boat owners how to just properly secure your vessel. Fox 4's Lauren Moss shows us how Matlacha residents are getting ready for whatever Elsa brings their way. Lauren?
Elsa is here, and boat owners have been working to secure their boats to the dock so that Elsa doesn't carry them away. Boat US, which is kind of like a hurricane center for boat owners, recommends securing your boat ashore and, if possible, as far away from the storm. If your boat isn't tied down correctly, it could end up getting swept up by storm surge. Remember this scene? Last year, a strong wind from Hurricane Ada crashed a man's boat into the Matlacha Pass Bridge and carried it away. Today, I noticed a lot of boats still in their lifts, but Boat US says that isn't the ideal place during storm surge. Reporting to Matlacha, Lauren Moss, Fox 4.
Lauren, thank you. And just a reminder, Lee County officials urge boat owners to just develop a storm plan for your boat. You've got one for your family, you've got one for your pets. They want to make sure you have one for your boat too. They also say secure boat documents and either tie your lines or trailer your boat away from the storm. Patrick?
Well, tonight, as the West Coast is making preparations for whatever impacts we're going to see, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, which is the St. Pete area right near Tampa, has a really important message for people in that whole region. Start preparing now if you haven't already. Mary O'Connor from our sister station in Tampa has the latest. Here's a look.
Here in Pinellas County, county officials' message to people is not to wait to prepare for Tropical Storm Elsa, instead to make those final preparations immediately.
Part of this is on you to make preparations now to keep yourself safe, to where our emergency crews don't have to make those calls in the middle of the night.
We've watched as people have picked up and filled sandbags in Pinellas Park today ahead of the storm. Pinellas officials said this is a shelter-in-place type of operation, unless you're in a low-lying area that's prone to flooding. Those folks are asked to make plans to stay elsewhere, like with friends or at a shelter.
As we've seen in the past with storms, I know what's going to happen is we're going to get calls. This is going to be an overnight event, and people are going to wake up in the middle of the night and they're going to have 3, 4, 5 feet of water, and they're going to call, and we're going to end up having to go out and do rescues, and so we're trying to mitigate that the best we can.
Officials say get your sandbags if you think you may have flooding, and elevate and secure items. Pinellas County Sheriff's message to holiday visitors: be smart.
Beginning at 6 o'clock tonight, from Dunedin all the way south to Paso Grill, all of the beaches will be restricted access. We'll have deputies out on the beaches with high water rescue vehicles and shallow watercraft to be able to effect those rescues.
People have been taking advantage of these sandbag operations like you see here, all in effort to take measures now before the storm arrives. In Pinellas Park, I'm Mary O'Connell.
Thank you, Mary. Tonight, Hendry County Emergency Management says that a tornado was detected on the radar in Hendry County earlier this afternoon. The head of their emergency management in Hendry County says it's not uncommon to see this on the northeastern side of a big storm like this. He also says people who live in the county should have a safe place to go to in their home.
So basically, you're trying to get into the strongest point in your house or the lowest lying area in the area, but basically you're trying to stay away from falling debris, stay away from open windows, and just take cover.
And that's information we can all use regardless of where you are when it comes to this storm or throughout the season. We also know that the red tide levels have been low or really undetectable along most of our coastline. We keep you updated on that every night on our news. So some people might be wondering, is this going to affect that at all? It'd be nice, right, if it could just get the heck out of here. We checked in with the Florida Gulf Coast University Water School, one of their top professors there, to get you some answers. He says, in theory, some of this impact from Elsa could make red tide worse if the storm blows some offshore nutrients, that's fertilizers and stuff, toward the coast.
So if you have a hurricane spinning like this, then the water could go this way. Yeah, so technically if you have, red tides way offshore, they could be pushed our way and eventually be enhanced by, nutrients that we have coastal or very close to inshore.
Now, some of those strong winds, as they've been affected here in Southwest Florida, can actually push that water away from the shore as well. So that can actually help when in terms of getting that red tide away from the beaches where it makes people cough and all that kind of thing. We've got live looks all throughout Southwest Florida throughout our special coverage here at 4 o'clock. And right now, it's a live look at the Naples Pier in beautiful Collier County. Just to the left of the pier, you see someone with a boogie board or maybe a small surfboard. You're not going to get much out of those waves. And we all know the warnings about not being in the water when there's a major storm offshore, even even if it doesn't look threatening. You could get caught up in rip tides and rip currents. But that said, there's no one on the pier. They typically close it when we have a big storm like this, and it looks like that's the case. It's a bummer for the tourism industry. They'd love to be able to say, keep coming on down, and they might be able to do that as early as tomorrow. So we'll keep you posted on that part of the story as we move forward here. Let's get back to Jane Monreal and Shari Armstrong for more from the desk.
Thank you, Patrick. We're just watching a little live picture, though, at Naples Pier of a couple of people right by the water, and it looks a little tame by Southwest Florida standards with summer storms.
That's right. And you know, one thing that I always thought was very interesting was Southwest Floridians and Floridians in general, they don't really back down sometimes when it comes to those water conditions. And so Rachel Lloyd was live, and we actually saw someone surfing in her shot, you know, because a lot of people like to take advantage of the water conditions, but we do not recommend it because officials say don't do that.
Well, we saw people in the story with Key West, and they're using the storm as their tourist attraction. You know, we've seen that over and over again. It is something to see with your own eyes and be here and actually experience it. We are fortunate enough it is not a major imposing threat, but again, we can't stress enough how it's important to be prepared, and you should have this down by now because this is only the beginning as we are just in the first week of July.
Agreed. This is a reminder. I like that you said a warm-up for so many of us. Yeah. We want to switch gears here for a second, though, because you mentioned South Florida, and we know, unfortunately, one of the biggest stories that we've been tracking is what's been happening in Surfside, and the search at the former site of that collapsed condo resumed today after a brief pause caused by Tropical Storm Elsa.
Charles Watson from Fox News reports from Surfside.
Search efforts in South Florida resuming Tuesday after being briefly put on pause due to lightning and rain bands from Tropical Storm Elsa.
These teams continue through extremely adverse and challenging conditions. Through the rain and through the wind, they have continued searching.
The situation now a bit safer for crews working in the rubble after what remained of the building was demolished over the weekend. With an unstable structure no longer towering above them, workers can now access areas that were previously unreachable.
We have been searching those areas. B1 and D1 was those primary grids, and then partial into B2 and D2.
An official answer to what caused the building to come down may still be months away, but at least 5 lawsuits have already been filed on behalf of residents, including some who are still missing. The Miami-Dade state attorney also says her office will present its own case to a grand jury. The tragedy has sparked concerns about many of South Florida's beachfront high-rises, especially Champlain Tower North, the condo's sister building built by the same developer.
Given we do not know why the first building fell down, we have significant concerns about that building and the residents in there.
FEMA has said it would pay relocation costs for anyone who wanted out of that north tower. A few residents have taken them up on that offer, but most have decided to stay put. In Surfside, Florida, Charles Watson, Fox News.
All right, keeping a close eye on Elsa. It's still making its way northward, still just offshore. Nothing really has changed. Now, we're going to get the next advisory coming up at 5 o'clock, and that'll give us a little better idea of what it's doing right now. But a few things that I'm looking at on satellite that indicate to me that it's trying to intensify. And one of the things is you can see those thunderstorms right there kind of blowing up near the circulation center. Now, keep in mind that the circulation center, at least the low-level circulation, is displaced from the mid-level circulation, so it's tilted to the side, and that is a sheared storm. Notice how all the clouds are kind of blowing off in this direction. There's some winds in the upper atmosphere that are trying to decapitate the storm, but it's still, despite this hostile environment, it is trying to intensify. The good news for us is that the wind field is not particularly wide. Typically with these tropical systems, we're used to with hurricanes and with tropical storms, at least us as meteorologists when we see them, we typically see these storms have wind fields that go outwards, at least tropical storm force winds about 140 miles from the center. At least 100 miles from the center. This one's a tiny one. It's only about 70 miles from the center that we're looking at those tropical storm force winds. So as the storm makes its approach to the coast here later on tonight, that wind field will start to spread onshore across especially northern portions of our area. So when I say our area, I'm basically talking about from DeSoto and Sarasota County southward to Collier County. So the northern parts of that area, that would be anywhere really north of the Cape and Fort Myers, would see the strongest winds as this continues to move towards the north, towards the coast here later on tonight. Now, the farther up I-75 you get into Sarasota County, into Pinellas County, and Manatee County, that's where we're going to see some of the stronger winds, because we do expect a potential landfall as a Category 1 hurricane up in that area. You get up to Pasco and even farther towards the north, maybe up towards Levy County. We could be looking at that landfall up on the Nature Coast. But the storm, again, is asymmetrical. All the rain and wind is on the east side, at least most of it, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now. I don't expect it to get much worse than what you're seeing right now. And if you're inland, you're probably wondering, what is all the hoopla about? And really, most of us are probably saying that just because we haven't seen these raging wind gusts that we typically see with a tropical system. Most of this is going to be restricted near the coast. Since the storm radius of wind is so small, the area that's going to be affected is not going to be that particularly large. And the areas that do see those strongest winds will be the area where the center makes its closest approach, would be the farther north you get into our area. So this is the latest advisory. This is the latest track. They do expect it to strengthen into a Category 1 hurricane. It doesn't have that much farther to go. Take it up another 5 miles an hour. We do have a Category 1 hurricane here. And notice that the landfall is going to be just north of the Tampa Bay area here for later on tonight. So this is getting up around Steinhatchee, perhaps up around Chiefland, Florida, where we could be looking at that landfall here later on tonight. For parts of the Nature Coast. And they have a potential for a 3 to 5 foot storm surge in this particular area just based on the shape of the coastline. But you get farther south, storm surge about 2 to 4 feet possible, particularly just immediately to the right of the storm, which would be places like Sarasota County up into portions of Pinellas County here for later on this evening. So again, the pressure down to 1,000 millibars. We'll see it drops into the 990s here with the next advisory, and moving off towards the north at 9 miles per hour. So there's the circulation right there. You can see the lightning strikes indicated with some of those bands, especially this particular band of what we would call, it's not necessarily an eye wall, it's really not, but if there were one who's going to be there, that's where it would be. And you can see that band there, that very stout band has that lightning. And that's where some of the strongest winds are. It's right under these thunderstorms that are located in this particular area. Now, you get farther towards the west across most of southwest Florida, all we're seeing is a light to moderate rain with occasional gusts. And the gusts have been 39, 40 miles an hour tops for most areas near the coast. Farther inland, 20, 30 miles an hour. That's it, and I don't expect it to get any worse than that. So we're not looking at a situation where we're going to get widespread damage across our area. I'm more concerned about additional rainfall because we've already gotten a lot. I'm also concerned about the threat for tornadoes. Not as much as I was earlier, but the wind shear is still there. As long as the center of circulation remains to our west and to our south and west, we're going to still have that east to southeast wind component at the surface. You get into the upper atmosphere, the winds are coming more out of the south. So you have an east to southeast wind component at the surface. Just a few thousand feet up, it's out of the south. You get twisting motion and you get spin in the atmosphere, and that's how these storms are able to tap into that and rotate. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at here for tonight. I do expect the tornado threat, though, to decrease. As the center starts to get farther north, we're going to start to see those winds turn more onshore, and then we expect that to continue to fall up here for later on tonight. So again, the tropical storm warning remains in effect all through coastal Collier. Now it includes inland Charlotte and inland Lee County, and into inland portions of Sarasota and coastal Sarasota as well, and points off towards the north. So really, that's the area that has the best chance for seeing those winds. Tornado watch remains in effect until 11 o'clock. We cannot write off the tornado threat until the low-level winds start to shift back more to a westerly direction to decrease the directional wind shear across our area. Directional wind shear meaning winds changing direction with height. They have to kind of turn more out of the southwest to decrease that shear and lessen the tendency for the storms to rotate. But that goes until 11 o'clock tonight. So any one of these storms could start to spin up. Storm surge warning remains in effect. Lee County, so getting down towards Bonita Beach and points off towards the north, 2 to 4 feet. Not out of the question. I think the highest surge would be, of course, closest to the right side of the storm as it moves in, depending on the angle. I do think that's going to be much farther north, but Just keep in mind that possibility is there, though, that we'll likely see some water rise. We've had kind of an offshore wind all day that's been pulling some of the water out. Rob Manch, I believe, was out there, Fort Myers Beach, kind of demonstrating that, and that will continue here to be the case, at least for the next several hours, until the center of circulation moves to our north. Then we'll start to get those winds coming more out of the west, and that will kind of change things a little bit, and perhaps we'll see a little bit more in the way of coastal flooding. Shouldn't get too bad, but that's the way it looks now. And when I say shouldn't get too bad, it doesn't look like it'll be like it was with Ada last November. I don't really like comparing storms because they each have their own personality, and even though they may be similar, they behave differently. But if you kind of want to have a reference, if you remember how Ada was, it does not look like this one is going to be quite as nasty as that was as it moved up the coast. So here's your wind field. 39 to 57 mile-an-hour wind gusts and perhaps sustained winds. I think more of the sustained winds are going to stay offshore, but low to mid-grade tropical storm force winds. High-end tropical storm force winds in the orange, that is going to be heading just off to our north. Now, I want to put this into motion, and I will show you exactly how the wind field will behave as the storm is making its approach to the coast. You can see by 7 o'clock tonight the way the wind field's shaping, and we're going to get an update to this wind field with the new track coming up at the 5 o'clock advisory. But you can kind of see how things pan out here. The tropical storm force winds stay restricted to coastal areas, and they will try to push inland a little bit when the storm center gets a little bit farther towards the north. But you can see here by 10 o'clock tonight, the strongest winds are going to be moving into portions of coastal Sarasota County and points off towards the north. The red circle that you see there is the hurricane force wind field, and that's going to be very small. The tropical storm force wind field is only 70 miles from the center, so extending out this way. But the hurricane force wind field is going to be very tiny and offshore, so we are not going to be dealing with hurricane force winds here. I can guarantee you that. We will not be seeing that. Possibility, though, that some gusts could get over 50 miles an hour. The best chance of that happening would be the Cape Hayes Peninsula. So you want to take an area from southern Sarasota County, so you want to go from Inglewood through Rotunda, all the way southward, perhaps as far south as Boca Grande, maybe even over towards areas north of Punta Gorda. So we're talking like Port Charlotte, Murdoch area, and maybe even Northport could see some of those gusts get into that 40 to 50 mile-an-hour range based on the angle of attack that this thing's going to be moving northward. By the time we head towards midnight, the wind should start decreasing. And remember, I talked about earlier, the tornado threat will decrease once the center gets north of our area. By this point, with the counterclockwise flow, we should start getting a westerly wind coming off the Gulf. That's going to decrease the wind shear. Tornado threat should go down later on tonight. So I do think the timing of the expiration of the tornado watch till 11 o'clock is right on the money, because as the storm lifts northward, the tornado threat should lift up into central and north Florida here by the time that happens. So again, wind gusts, this is what we're talking about for the next several hours. Inlet areas, it's not going to be bad at all. And even for coastal areas, it's not going to be terrible. We've seen a lot worse here, but 20 to 30 mile-an-hour wind gusts, not out of the question through later on tonight. Notice where the orange is in the areas that I was talking about. Far northern Lee, coastal portions of Charlotte County, and getting into Sarasota County, where we'll see those wind gusts perhaps getting up to around 50 miles an hour. But at this point, that's as high as I expect them to get, and it's going to be mainly for those areas. So only a very small area will see those stronger winds. And then by the time we hit towards tomorrow morning, we're going to have that southwesterly wind. They're only going to be about 20 to 30 miles an hour at the most. And even then, that may be a bit on the generous side. So again, this kind of shows you what to expect from this storm. This is not going to be anything that's going to be too terrible here through this evening. Again, the tornado threat is what we're going to be watching. We're going to be looking at the heavy rain threat as well, because again, rainfall totals could be adding up even more through this evening. And I'll kind of show you here through Wednesday afternoon what we're going to be looking at. Nearest the center of circulation is where we'll see some of the heaviest additional rainfall totals. Some areas could pick up another 2 to 4 inches. It really depends on if you sit under one of these rain bands. If you don't, then your totals are going to be a little bit lighter. I think that's going to be definitely going to be the case here farther inland, where we're already starting to see a little bit of dry air being pulled into the south side of the storm. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go back over to the radar so I can show you that. We're starting to see the rain beginning to fall apart, at least break up a little bit farther south. And as a result of that, we're going to see again, the rain not quite as steady and heavy as it was earlier. So you kind of got the wide view here, and I will show you that it's getting a little bit more spotty the farther south you get. So I do think some dry air is going to be getting pulled into the south side of the system. So instead of the heavy, steady rain here later on tonight, we're going to start to get more spotty rain as the evening goes on. But we still have to pay attention to these bands as they rotate on shore. The wind shear is there. The instability, not so much, because it's been cloudy and rainy throughout the day. The storms that had tornado warnings on them earlier were on the leading edge of this rain shield, so they were kind of tapping into air that had not been rained on yet. So it was warm, it was humid. The storms were able to tap into that rotation in the atmosphere and were able to spin up. Notice you haven't received any, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself here, that we've not had any more tornado warnings since then. Why? Because of the fact that the rain now has cooled the atmosphere off. The storms don't really have anything to tap into. We want this to continue. Let the rain continue steady and keep things cool. That'll keep the atmosphere from starting to cook up and supply energy for these storms. But that could happen where you're starting to see these breaks where the rain has stopped. The atmosphere will have a chance to recharge. The shear is still there. We could see another round of some of these supercell storms in these bands try to spin off. But again, the heavier rain will continue lifting to the north here for tonight, and then we'll even have a chance for some of that rain here continuing into tomorrow. So again, kind of a wet night in store, a little bit on the windy side, but overall things are looking much improved here from what we've been seeing here throughout the day. And again, even then, it hasn't really been that bad. Cindy, I know you've been over here working. Yes, I'm going to take a drink of water. I've got it's like I am just going 90-0 here, but you know that's kind of how this storm's going to pan out.
Yeah, that was very, very good and very thorough, Derek. That's a lot going on. Yeah, give him a round of applause for that. Was that 5 minutes?
Did I go 5 minutes?
I think you did, yeah.
Well,
that's good.
I'm about to lose my voice, but
yeah,
really the thing that I want to take away from this is that this is not a terrible situation for us.
Right.
Nothing to worry about, but we're on the air because we want to let you know what areas are going to see the effects of it once you get closer to the coast. That's going to be occurring in the next few hours, so about another 4 hours or so, we should start to see the winds picking up coastal Lee, northward into Charlotte County, Sarasota County. Everybody else, what you've seen so far this afternoon is what you'll see here for the rest of this evening. Just a few scattered showers around. Chase, one of our producer extraordinaires here, is bringing some more water to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'll add that to my Yeti cup over here.
I can't believe you guys are giving me applause for that.
Well, that was very thorough, yeah.
Yes.
And one of the pretty things when you do get a tropical system is the visible satellite.
Okay.
Let's throw that up on Weather 2. And just the cloud tops that you can see. Look at this. This is just beautiful here. And you're right, Derek. Look, a little bit of dry air trying to pull in and come around on the back side here. So you're getting a little bit of air, dry air trying to entrain around the back side, which is making things, you know.
And the storms are still not firing up near the center. The storm is tilted now. Meteorologist Eric Stone, I believe, the other night did a demonstration where you stack some plates up, kind of demonstrating the storm. Like a hurricane likes to be stacked up from the ground all the way to the top. It likes to be just like this. But if you lean the storm over, the energy process that it uses to strengthen, called latent heat release. It's not like heat when you turn a heater on. You can't really feel it, but it's the energy when you basically evaporate water. It goes from a gas to a liquid. That process takes energy. That energy is released. It's called latent heat. That helps intensify the storms. And with these hurricanes, it likes it concentrated over one area, straight up and down. When you tilt the storm over to the side like that, all of that is distributed over a larger area. So it's not concentrated, it's spread out, so the storm can intensify. This thing is trying to defy that and intensify a little bit more. Winds now up to 70 miles an hour, and I'm really waiting for the new advisory to come out to see if they're going to bump the winds up. But right now, I think at the most, this thing will tick up another 5 miles an hour, and then we're going to be looking at it move inland tonight. But that tilted storm structure, we saw that earlier when it was moving across the Caribbean at like 31 miles an hour. I've never seen one move that fast. It was tilted over to the side, and that's why it just could not become a stronger storm.
I think a lot of folks probably were wondering, okay, here it is, the beginning of July. We're already seeing a hurricane. Is the timing of the time of the year a reason why this has not strengthened, why we're not seeing a stronger hurricane, why it is having difficulty even developing because of the dry air? Remember the Saharan dust out there in the Atlantic? Even for the fact that this thing made it all the way across from Africa is amazing.
I believe, I think I saw a statistic where this was the earliest storm that far east in the Atlantic.
Yes.
Typically, we don't look for these African waves, and this originated as a tropical wave from Africa. We typically do not see them develop this far east this early in the season. And it struggled in the Caribbean because typically the Caribbean is not a favorable environment for tropical cyclones this time of year. The trade winds are entirely too fast. The storm just can't, when a storm is moving along like that, it can't wrap itself up. So you remember for a while we were saying, when is it going to finally close off and become an area of low pressure? When we get later in the season, though, those trades start slowing down. The storms have a better chance for wrapping themselves up. You don't have as hostile an environment. You don't get the Saharan dust outbreaks that interrupt them. And so I'm going to be honest, it's a little concerning that we've been looking this early in the season out in the Atlantic. It makes me wonder what we're going to be looking forward to in the rest of July, August, September, October, when we're really going to be paying attention to those things. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right. Not that we know anything. There's nothing else out there right now.
Hold that thought.
That maybe we should check that. Just take a look at it right now. There's nothing out there right now to be concerned about.
Okay. New advisory has just come out. So just give me a second here. The winds have not changed. The pressure did drop down to 998 millibars. So the wind field has not responded yet. We may see in the 8 o'clock intermediate if the winds do come up some with the 8 o'clock advisory. But again, the winds have not responded to the drop in pressure. But if you remember earlier, the pressure was down to 1,000 millibars. It's down to 998 millibars, and it's picked up a little speed. It's moving north at 10 miles per hour now, and as a result of that, we could be looking at the beginnings of an acceleration. The storm is going to start picking up speed with each passing advisory as it gets picked up into the upper level southwesterly winds. Part of the reason why it's dealing with some of that shear right now. I'm going to give you kind of a closer vantage point that I was showing you earlier with the track, and it still looks like things are kind of on tap. It looks like it'll be just off the coast, just southwest of Tampa Bay by 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. So as a result of that new track, the track really has not changed. We do expect, again, it to briefly intensify to a hurricane and then likely start weakening, though, as it makes its way inland. What I want to look at, though, is the wind field, because this is what's going to be changing here, perhaps, with any slight shift of the track. And really, there's not much difference in what we saw earlier. Still expecting the tropical storm force winds, at least the outer edge of them, to start pushing through coastal Lee County through the next few hours, then push inland. And then as the storm makes its approach towards the coast, the strongest winds, where you see the orange off to the top of your screen, moving up into Sarasota County. And then it looks like the tropical storm force wind potential will start decreasing from midnight and points into tomorrow morning. So, and that's going to, again, be restricted to mainly areas towards the coast.
And really, there's no difference if it is a strong tropical storm or a weak hurricane.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The impacts are going to be exactly the same. So really naming it a hurricane doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and throw the track back up here. So again, the pressure's dropped 2 millibars. So a pressure that falls, whenever we see these advisories and you see the pressure go down. So it was 1,000 millibars. It was 1,007 yesterday. It's down to 1,000 this morning. It's down to 998. That indicates the storm is strengthening. The low pressure is deepening. It's getting stronger. But the winds sometimes don't respond, sometimes depending on the size of the storm. And in this case, the winds are only at about 70 miles an hour. And so if we do see an uptick, it doesn't really have that much longer because this thing's going to be onshore in the next, less than 24 hours or so. So next, 18 hours or so, it's going to be onshore. So it's got a little while longer. I don't expect significant intensification, but it could come up another 5.
Derek, explain why it's moving north and then is going to turn to the north and east. What is making it do that?
Well, it's a really good question. There's some upper level winds that are now I kind of wish I had been able to set up my water vapor graphics to kind of show you that. But there's a trough of low pressure. That's part of the reasons why it's getting sheared. And then it's another reason why we're going to be seeing that northwest turn. The trough of low pressure is located right out here, and I'll kind of draw it with these arrows. It's located just like this. So it's encountering that upper level shear. That's what's helping blow the clouds off to the right like that, but it's strengthening, as you can see, regardless of that. But also, that's what's going to cause it to turn towards the north and east. So the north turn occurred when that big area of high pressure over the Atlantic was steering it west, and there was a weakness in it. There was a break in the west side of it. These storms like to follow that weakness in the upper level high. So as the storm started turning north, it was occurring as that high was weakening because of that trough. The trough was chewing into that high pressure area and causing it to weaken. And then the storm was like, hey, I've got a door to go through. I'm going to go right through that. And so now the upper level shear associated with the trough is going to help pull it off towards the north and east. This thing's going to be way past the Carolinas here by Thursday.
Thursday.
So it's going to be gone.
Tropical systems are really delicate, aren't they?
They are.
Really, you have to have the perfect conditions for them to form.
Well, it's just kind of interesting. If we had the ability as humans to be able to create the things that actually kill these things off, like get a giant hairdryer and blow it on it to create a lot of dry air, or perhaps maybe some giant ice cube you could drop in front of it that would cool the ocean waters to keep it from. I mean, you had projects going back in the late 60s. I remember they were doing the project Storm Fury back in 1969, where they were trying to cloud seed these storms, and it didn't work. They thought it was working, but then they realized, oh, that's due to hurricane dynamics. There's a process that these hurricanes go through, the strong ones. You've probably heard this before, eye-wall replacement cycles that cause them to strengthen and weaken. That's what was causing that. So it just goes to show you that we're like this tiny compared to the large entity of nature, and hurricanes. We're never going to be able to get to the point where we can control these things. But they are very delicate. Very small things in the atmosphere can be out of whack. It'll completely rip a storm apart.
So let's hope the rest of the season these things have a difficulty forming and developing. We'd have no idea what the rest of the season is going to hold.
I'm banking on El Nino just suddenly strengthening. It would increase the shear over the Atlantic, and we wouldn't have to worry with these.
That would be great.
That would be the ideal scenario, but don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There's your Hurricane 101 course that we just went through.
Let's. I don't know if Shari and Jane, if you guys have any more information over there. We've been kind of running our mouths over here.
Yeah.
So.
Running your mouths. I've been sitting here like this. We've been swooning. Like, aren't they just so cute, Jane and I?
gosh.
We have. That's the truth. I have to be honest with
me?
Southwest Florida. Just because I feel like whenever I get to see you guys in action, which is, I'm blessed to see you guys every day, but especially during breaking weather news like this, your passion just really just comes through, and you speak so clearly. I love that you explicitly told us your concerns when it comes to the storm right now, Derek. It's wind and the possibility of tornadoes. So just being that clear for so many of us who are watching, we're like, what's the big deal? You make it very clear what the big deal is. So we appreciate you and Cindy and the entire weather team. And maybe I'm biased, but I think it's the best weather team in Southwest Florida.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, we want to keep you up to date, Southwest Florida, when it comes to Tropical Storm Elsa and how it's impacting travel. Right now at Tampa International Airport, their operations team has suspended because of Tropical Storm Elsa. So their operations have suspended, excuse me. So this is a live look at the airport right now. According to their website, all flights in and out of Tampa terminals will pause until 10 tomorrow morning. Airport officials there say that'll just give them time to take a look at any damage from the tropical storm. Hopefully there's not any. The airport does recommend that all travelers just check with your airlines for the most up-to-date flight schedules for the next just 2 to 3 days. And if you're flying in and out of RSW, Southwest Florida International Airport, during the next 24 hours, we want to remind you to check and make sure your flight was not delayed or not canceled. The Lee County Port Authority says American, Frontier, JetBlue, Southwest, or United have all canceled many flights. We're giving you a live look at the big board right here so you can kind of see what we're seeing and what they're seeing as well. A reminder to check your flight status, because as you can see on the right-hand side, we are seeing a good amount of canceled flights there as well. Now, once again, we recommend that you check in with your airline for more information on your flight status, whether that's an app or on their website. And of course, you can head to fox4now.com for the latest updates on Tropical Storm Elsa's track. Or of course you can just message us on Facebook, because we are live on Facebook throughout the day and we want to make sure we get your questions answered as well. A lot of you asking about flights, so there you go. And in the event that you have flights canceled, several major airlines will waive fees for some Florida cities that could feel the impact of the storm, like here or Tampa. Delta plans to waive certain change fees for Fort Myers, Key West, Sarasota, and Tampa. The airline says it will waive fees if the new traveler date is on or before July 10th. Now, note here, American Airlines is also offering very similar waivers for the same cities, but you will have to rebook by tomorrow.
Well, regulars to the Florida Keys knew to brace for Elsa's impact. We showed you earlier how they were looking at the storm as part of their tourist attraction. And they didn't really have it in mind, but once they were made aware that it was going to head their way, they didn't stop from venturing out. Check them out. Despite the deteriorating weather conditions in Key West, some visitors from Dallas, Texas, still said that they enjoyed their vacation.
Today, well, we just got out of our guest house, which is right here, and we decided that we were finally going to come and take our picture since we didn't want to wait in line.
I don't know what it would be like to be worse. I don't know that I'd want that, but this is okay. I can handle this.
It's something they'll talk about for sure. A hurricane watch remains in effect for the Florida coast, again, as this possibility of Elsa re-strengthening to a Cat 1. Patrick?
We're also working to see if any of this might affect the stuff that we don't want in Southwest Florida, like these blue-green algae blooms that you see in the Caloosahatchee and so many canals these days. You know, when we don't get a lot of rain, this becomes more of a problem. Lake Okeechobee was about a foot over its normal level before the impacts of Elsa. It really isn't expected to dump too much rain in the lake, and we like that because once the lake gets high, that leads to the water releases, and you know the Caloosahatchee connects Lake O to the Gulf, so all that junk, all the fertilizer, all the runoff that ends up in the Caloosahatchee ends up along our beaches, and that can bring the algae blooms. We checked with an expert at Florida Gulf Coast University, the water school. He said a lot of forms of algae in the water end up in Fort Myers anyway, and he says the fact that it's so early in rainy season might actually help here.
All right, just want to remind you that Collier Area Transit, or CAT, has been suspended, started a couple hours ago. This is due to winds now picking up past their danger threshold of 35 miles an hour. So as a reminder, most county school classes, colleges, camps, they've all been shut down for the day. Florida Southwestern also holding just their online classes later this evening. And we have been keeping watch for announcements for the county school systems regarding their plans for tomorrow, tomorrow's summer school classes, as well as the camp schedules. It looks like it is a go for DeSoto County schools as well as Charlotte County schools. And then the Collier County School District let us know just a little while ago that they will be open tomorrow as usual. Waiting on Lee County School District, they said they're going to make a decision by about 6 o'clock. So holding off for another hour and 10 minutes before they tell us what they're going to do about schools resuming tomorrow.
And just a reminder, as Southwest Florida begins to feel the impacts of Tropical Storm Elsa, you want to make sure that you've signed up for emergency alerts with your county. Staying informed is a big deal here, very important. So Charlotte, Collier, and Lee counties all participate in the alert program. You can sign up for those alerts. Just go to your county's website, and then don't forget you can stay up to date on Tropical Storm Elsa 24 hours a day when you head to fox4now.com/hurricane. And of course, make sure you download the Fox 4 app as well. We want to give you this live look right now at the Naples Pier. We've had reporters out here all day. This is a live look right now, though, and you can see very different from what we saw earlier today, which people were still out on the pier because, you know, Floridians don't back down easily. Just because we say storm doesn't mean that Floridians aren't going out on the water. But as you can see, there are still a few people kind of straggling here on the Naples Pier. But for the most part, it's kind of like, all right, we're starting to take this a little bit more serious, and you can see some the beach is cleared out just a little bit there. But also, Jane, take a look at those waves. Patrick, take a look. Patrick, I feel like that would be you. See that person going down the stairs right there?
Oh, I thought.
Still trying to make the most of the pier. I kind of feel like that would be you.
Having it to yourself, Patrick.
Still just enjoying all that Florida has to offer.
Cleaning up along the way.
Well, that's kind of the way I look even on a sunny day, because you know how sun protection oriented I am. Well, we love to see that most people are staying out of the water. You see a couple people just to the left there who look to still be in that water, and that's just not a chance you want to take. Even if it feels like the storm isn't doing anything dramatic on our coast at any point, you've got rip currents and rip tides that are going to be a factor that you don't always see on the surface, so we'd love people to be careful. I also want to remind anyone who's got a kid, you got your little cherubs in those day camps run by Lee County, and you might have heard that Lee County employees, non-essential, were told they could leave at 2 o'clock today just to be safe. But the day camps, the summer camps are running full speed ahead, and they should be there when you go to pick them up. Sorry, parents, your kids will be waiting for you on time. You can't use the storm. You got to take them home with you.
No. It's about time people pick up everyone's like pretty much wrapping up for the day anyway. A couple of stores are open. Public's getting those last minute, gallons of water and last minute supplies, but it's a kind of business as usual here in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, I was in Publix, and I'd like to attest that there were a lot of people purchasing cupcakes, including me. Maybe not though, James.
Maybe.
This is the live look now at beautiful Sanibel. Got cameras all around town.